Why? Because it's you.
What's on?
I tend to be that. Yeah. Here's the agenda.
Make sure you keep a comfy spot, Meryl, and if I get desperate, I'm gonna come over there and put my head on your shoulder.
So the water stations.
I guess I should have been wandering. Did you get one?
Oh, I've got one. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You don't, I forgot to download it and print it. Sure. How about you, young man? You didn't do that?
I got on my. Thank you.
Pretty good, Donna.
See,
First one?
yes, okay.
That would be, yes,
We're talking about
4:30. 4:30, but we're about to go over it all again.
rerun.
Yeah. It's rerun, so that we
Yeah.
breeze through it. Make sure everybody's good with it, we vote, that's it, and then you're good.
Yeah.
Just an agenda there if you want it.
So what is our? Was.
Budget?
That's all. Previous.
Yeah. You said you got it.
He's just figured out like what we're. But she's down.
And you know.
Yeah, I don't think she's gonna like it. It's because she was like, saying, oh, these guys are giving rednecks. I'm like, well, there's none out there. They're stuck out there. So. That's like.
Everybody here. It's getting close.
Shows the increase. And I think our.
Now, you don't think it's bad.
How are you?
I did it again and it's done, so. No crunching in the microphone.
Good, thank you.
Something broke down.
I'm gonna write somebody else's now.
I'm good right now, thank you.
Thank you. And I'll highlight it and say, okay, this is what this is.
Okay.
Try out, all right, no.
Yeah.
It's now 6 o'clock. Are we on the Zoom?
Right, that's on.
It's now 6 o'clock. Calling the Harmony CDD May monthly meeting to order. I want to welcome everybody who came. If you can, check your cell phones and please put them on mute if you haven't already done so. Just to help us keep order as we move through the meeting. First order of business is our roll call. Supervisor Chikanis.
Present.
Supervisor Phillips. Here. Supervisor Leeds.
Here.
Supervisor Castle. Supervisor Kramer is here also. We now move on to audience comments. This is a time during our meeting when anyone from the public can appear before the board and has 3 minutes to provide comments and ideas and suggestions to the board. It's not a time of discussion and back and forth. But if anyone would like to provide comments, please feel free to come forward and state your name and address for the record so we can have a record of your comments. Is there anyone here in the audience currently who would like to provide some comments? Seeing none, is there anyone on Zoom, Dan?
There are some people on, if anyone wants to unmute themselves and speak up, feel free.
Okay, seeing
Nope.
no
looks good.
one? All right, seeing no audience comments, we will close that portion of the meeting and move on to our contractors report. Benchmark, you're up. And then state your name just so the recording secretary.
April Mesney, and I'm production manager with Benchmark.
Watch your head.
Yeah. It's nice to have you here.
It's nice to see you guys. How are you?
Anything you have to report on progress through the neighborhood and
We're still going ahead with the irrigation. We also have that, I believe that's a proposal as well for track K and the wiring.
okay, that. The first two for the board members as well as benchmark, the first two proposals are track K for wiring and other things. That is actually a developer expense.
Yep,
So please ignore those two proposals. Those do not have to do with the CBD.
right. They were sent to the
Yeah, right,
developer.
sent in error. There is a third proposal though with irrigation, I think.
Yes, it was for 4 timers to be installed. And one was already replaced due to, we had an emergency situation where sod was being laid. So we had installed that and located a new valve.
Okay. So you've got, is this for additional fairly extensive?
It's
Care.
additional, it's just because as we fix the lines and we move on down, we're discovering more things.
One?
But there is 4 that need to be replaced.
Okay, so the $20,000 isn't just for the 4 controllers, though, that's for
No,
more than that.
yes,
So I presume this proposal is basically another not to exceed $20,000 for further maintenance to bring the system
correct, yes.
to standards.
Right, as we go, we're finding more leaks, more discovery, we're repairing those, the timers, the valves,
Mhm.
and as we go, they're improving, but we're discovering more,
Discovering, okay.
correct?
So I would like to see the proposal reworded so that we know, because it looks like we're just paying for these things that are listed here: replace 3 bad controllers, locate missing zones, 4 days to locate missing coverage areas, track areas still down, controls, replace his and lines. So this is not, it doesn't say not to exceed, and I'm just confused because what we were saying about for something controllers is not even on here. It says we replaced 3 bad controllers. So I'm just confused about what this proposal is for, and we agreed to $20,000 to initiate an irrigation
Overhaul.
exploration. It was just an exploration, not even an overhaul. It was just.
That was a not to exceed of 25,000. That has been exhausted.
And that's been repaired.
Right, yeah, so
Just explain.
Nick, I'm gonna jump in because
Okay,
you weren't here for, I don't believe you were here for that meeting, but when they took over to their initial 30-day audit, we actually gave them, I think they asked for a 60-day extension, so because there was so much they found, right? They came to us and talked to about making the system,
Looping it.
yeah, like closing the system, and they sat here and said, listen, we're gonna make some repairs, make some lateral line repairs, find valves that are off, fix those. But that's gonna then cause additional stuff that hasn't been running to be found as broken after that initial 25 that they had proposed. That's what this additional 20 as an NTE would then move forward to, if that helps clarify.
Well, my question is, are we gonna be asked for another $20,000 after this?
Well, the problem, Carol, is that I don't think they know that answer. I don't think we know that answer because there's so many valves, like, for example, the pocket park where the alleyway was at. There were only 2 valves working when that alleyway was stripped. We were told there was 3, they found a 4th valve there. So there were 2 valves there that weren't even working prior to these guys taking over and doing their audit. They wouldn't have known that as they go to the controller and they're turning stuff on. If the valve was disconnected or there was a bad solenoid, it wouldn't even fire. So now the next step would be for them to track the wire, which luckily they didn't have to do at the pocket park because we had the work going on there, and that's how they determined there was a 4th valve. there could be more, and I don't want to speak on behalf of Benchmark because I don't know. How much more there may be, but these, from what I was explained to by Jacob. These repairs, there's clocks that were bad that we knew about. And then. From closing the main lines and the lateral lines and fixing valves that weren't working in the initial process. This is now what's coming down the line for additional repairs from getting stuff that wasn't working back up and running. So I don't,
I think what would help us is if we could get. An itemized summary of the work that was done on the first 25,000, so we can see what all's been going on. And give us an idea of what the next 20,000 that they're asking for is going to be going. I know you can't predict everything. This is money that they're going to need as things start popping up as they go.
Have the binders already, they've been provided.
well, we have the binders from their initial inspection, but some of that's gonna show that zones aren't working, so once they kick those on, now you're gonna have, okay, this zone kicked on, there's another 10 or 15 heads, or another lateral line break, or whatever it is. We can ask for more description, and again, if the board wants to move forward with any NTE. We won't move forward with approving it until we get a proposal that's presented, that's more in depth. That helps, or you're into your rainy season, I just don't want you to forget about this, because again, the way the contract's written is they will become responsible for everything under 2 inches, but they got to get the system operational first for them to become responsible. So if you sit on it, then theoretically, the way the contract's written is they're not responsible for anything under 2 inches because they haven't accepted the system because there's so many repairs still.
I understand. What I'm trying to get at here is how far, what percentage of system exploration and repair are they at with the 25,000? And now where do they expect to be with an additional 20,000? Are we gonna be 90 or 100% through? Are we gonna be 50% through? Where are we?
Well,
Because-
that's, yeah, I believe the $25,000 initial is done.
Right.
I'll let you speak
But
on that.
how far did it get?
How far in terms of looking at the whole system did they get? With the 25%
I
done?
think Nick's got.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll get with Jacob and see percentage wise where we're at and where the 25,000 had taken us and where we see.
The $20,000.
Right, but it's like he was saying, once we, make these corrections, it'll take us further down the line. And we'll find more problems, more issues, more timers that are bad, more bad valves. So that's how that budget,
Well, and so, and again, not gonna clear this up, it could be a long meeting, but some of the stuff that they're talking about, timers and valves aren't even the 2 inch and under, like that's. Just
It's
stuff you're
gonna
gonna
cost
have
us
to
anyway.
cost you anyways, so,
right.
but we do need additional descriptions on that, and like last time. You guys gave us head counts, you gave us number of lateral breaks, you gave us estimated mainline breaks, like that's what we wanna see on this proposal. To kind of move forward with approving
Get that.
that makes sense.
And how far this is getting us percentage wise? From where we started to the 25 to the 20, and then where the 20 will take us approximately. Like, are we 50% done, are we 70%?
Absolutely. We're on the same page with that.
Yeah, and it. However, my understanding is that they're at a standstill money wise and they can't continue on repairs at this point, so. If the board would be willing to provide an NTE. For further repairs to. Close the system, so to speak, if it's 20,000 or something less. I entertain a motion.
Well, so we have a proposal, I'd just like to hear from our attorney. If that's a wise thing to do to, the proposal is not very detailed,
Right.
very, doesn't show a lot of information.
Well, I wouldn't adopt this proposal. I wouldn't grant this proposal. What I would word as another motion. And if you could help us with that.
Sure, what I would suggest, because I think that, the very valid questions that the board members are raising is, you could approve. A not to exceed amount subject to final review and approval by a board member that wants to dig into this and make sure that they get, the proposals that have the backup you want, and not approving it before you understand where the 25,000 went, because if they come back and say 25,000 got you 3% done, I'm pretty sure you're gonna want to come back to the board and have a different discussion on that item. I'm not suggesting that's where it is, but you can approve it and give a board member the ability to work with district staff to refine it so that you actually know where this money is going after you understand where the last money went.
And so what does the motion sound like?
The motion would be to approve not to exceed $20,000 of irrigation repairs with Benchmark, subject to district management and board member, or a specific board member
Are you, yeah,
approving the work before it gets done.
So moved.
and who's the board member? Carol Castle,
That's fine.
thank you.
Made a motion.
Carol Castle,
Who's second?
I have a motion, I don't have
I
a
will.
second yet.
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Supervisor Lee. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Reluctantly.
Yes, so you'll be working with Supervisor Castle and Mark to pull all that together. To confirm where we are and where we're going with the additional, and you, along with our district manager, will look at it.
How long does this 28 last for?
It just depends like on, per break, per situation. Each thing costs, something different, like the valve was a lot different than what a sprinkler is. So once we put eyes on that, we can give a better answer. to
And that's
that.
25K, how long did that last? 2 months?
2 or 3 months, was it?
3 months. 3.
3 months.
Is that right, Brad?
Yeah, but it's not necessarily a lot of the time, right? It's more a lot of the materials and labor to fix what was already.
Right, but if we're exploring around and we're not finding things broken, that's labor, right?
Well, no, we're finding them.
How many-
Yeah.
Our system is.
Yeah, but the initial inspection did come back with, I think there was over 65 heads broken, there were.
Right.
Rotors, there was 30 plus sprays, there was.
Okay.
I think 15 or 16 main lines or laterals, so that was identified in their initial 60-day audit, they found clocks that weren't working and everything, so those monies went to fix that, but. The way they explained it is that the system wasn't closed, right, with all these breaks, when you turn something on.
Right.
If you've got a main line break, you're losing pressure down the line, so once you fix that main line, you repressurize further down the line. And you may find more stuff that was broken that's not really showing yet, and that's where we're at with this one.
But we don't know what percentage of the
Right.
system's been
But
repaired.
like, it would be nice to see a map maybe of
Mhm.
where they covered and then where they don't.
That would be,
Or at least what percentage.
Right,
Well,
yeah,
how many-
kind of the percentage, right? If we know where the lines and the heads are.
well, I
If we know
don't,
the percentage, then we don't really need the map.
Right.
well, it's helpful. I'm a math person also.
I'll see if I can't get a map along with the percentage.
Could be a work authorization under your existing agreement.
Right.
Not just signing this proposal, and because it is a not
Yes,
to
no.
exceed,
We're
you
not,
need to make sure that there's unit prices associated with, 4 days to locate missing covered. Well, what's the cost for that if it's not in our contract already? So, well, that's just some of the issues that we'll be able to work through.
Does anyone know how many miles of irrigation system we have here in Harmony?
Um,
You have 39 miles of sidewalk, you have probably 1,000 miles a year.
All right, so if we don't spend this $20,000, then what? I mean, do we have an alternative here?
Yeah, your irrigation doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
And then we lose our plants and our trees and our landscaping.
Yeah.
Right, but I meant,
we're good. I'm going to go forward and ask. I received a phone call. On May 22nd from Toho saying that there's a high water notice, there's a problem. In fact, evidently this high water notice had been given out previously and nothing was done about it. And it's extremely high. I don't even know what the amount is for this. It's at 0 Harmony Square Drive West. The water bill for this month. The last month for this meter was $455,
Okay,
or for the previous month. For the month we just paid, it's $5,589. That's about a 12-fold increase.
right.
And they say the current one looking at us is gonna be even higher.
Right.
So
What address is this?
0.
0, and we actually have 2 meters there. 3? Okay.
Yes.
That general area, yes.
It's 0 Harmony Square Drive West. But the bigger issue I have, I'm really concerned about this. The good thing is Toho usually works with it if we get right on it, and they will actually credit us money back.
Okay,
But it's important that somebody is watching these bills like a hawk. And somebody's taking their calls and passing them on to Benchmark, if not having them go to Benchmark. When they get these high water.
Who
rates.
Barbara set that up with?
It was going to Sally,
Okay, Sally retired.
and Sally left. And so whoever answered the phone at Infomark on May 22nd said, oh, Sally's gone, call Teresa, and gave him my number.
That's fun.
It-
It sounds fun.
I mean, I don't mind taking a call, but I don't think it's the most efficient way to do it.
Probably not.
And it would have been good if Benchmark is giving these bills the moment you guys get them. And they can take a look and see, oh my God, that meter irrigation water is going berserko. Hopefully, Toho is trying to get a real time system to where our vendor could actually look at our service in real time and see what's going on. But until then, we need somebody whose designated job is to watch these things. So help me with that. Anyone?
Yeah, it's pretty easy. I need to call and put it in my name. Not sure why it was ever in Sally's name, just because she pays the bills. Probably not the best person to be sending that to. Should have been coming to me all along. So I have no problem sending you all those bills.
what we'll do is I will look into meter zero immediately, priority one. And we'll see if there's something we can do to stop the bleeding and resolve that.
Okay,
Meter zero.
yeah.
Also to that, there was a mainline break that had thoroughly shut down all of Harmon at the end of March, 1st of April. There was a considerable leak and a valve blowout that was repaired. That's the information that I got today from Jacob. So that's probably why your invoice month shows high.
Would that be, is it this one? Are we confirmed that, confirmed that this one?
Yeah, that was, I mean, that's my
Do you have
communication.
a-
Jacob, I've got a,
Yeah, I've got a meter number and.
000784430.
No,
Nope.
Zero Harmony West.
well, you said.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, that's our account number. There's, sorry, I thought. you said-
Meter map, that's what matches that account.
Okay, that's the account number. The meter number is different.
Oh, okay, so you were talking about the account number, not the meter.
Right,
You have a meter map that has all these numbers on there, and they're all different numbers.
okay,
So that number associates with Zero Harmony Drive West.
okay.
Was
I'm,
that?
I'm just letting you know it's the account number. 000784430, according to the Toho water bill is our account number. So when you see those numbers, you may call them an account number, I mean, a meter number, but if you speak with Toho, they will know it as an account. That makes sense?
No, because yeah.
Is this the map you're looking
That's
for?
the map right there.
Yeah,
And that map associates with what we get from Toho. On, yes, on their account number,
Okay,
but if you look at the account number for that. Which is how that map, I don't know who created that map, but we didn't. But right there is 05 right here. 744 or the $5,500 one
mhm.
associates with. 784430, which on that map is down at the very bottom.
Right, this is a meter map, but it's got account numbers associated with the meter.
that's what she's.
So that's what I'm saying, that's the
He's saying.
$5,500.
Right, I just.
These numbers are account numbers, they're not meter.
The
Correct.
Zero Harmony Square Drive West, the second one went from 278 to 700 and something. So again, we have several, that's why our bill was $19,000 this month, for that month.
Yeah.
So,
It's not a lot more water than the driver was.
yeah, but it's been dry for a lot of months, so. But just be aware, I was wondering if maybe it was, I knew the 5,500 one must have been some sort of break or problem, and I'm sure you'll find it.
Right, if it was already repaired, like what Jacob is saying, then it's resolved, but we're still gonna follow up with investigation and make sure that there is no more further leaking
Okay.
at that particular meter.
Yes, and you can call Barbara and he can give you her name and number, and she can even send you down to the, what, every 2 hours usage of
Okay.
what's coming out of that.
Are you guys running the water board to find these leaks and issues?
Per zone, but it's like, it's no more than
It's just.
hit test.
Okay.
So each zone would run for a couple of minutes while we're doing that. Once we, discover whatever issue it may be, then we shut it down, make the repair, and we move on. So it doesn't run its whole cycle.
But there were a lot of valves that were turned off, right? Now that they're, but are now running.
Right,
So
so
we're using more water because. we
more
have
zones are functioning,
areas that are now getting.
operation.
Right,
Correct.
or we may be, I've seen in a couple of meters where they may have had 2 or 3 zones or valves.
Okay,
And one, because they found the other ones, they turned on another one, then the other one goes down because they don't need to use spray as far, or whatever, I don't know all this. But anyway, what I'm gonna do, I'll hand this to you and these are the 2 high meters of that 0 Harmony West, that way you have all the meter number, the account for
Okay.
that particular meter, and all the information to
Who
communicate.
made that mapping? I don't know.
The dates for that ACH for $5,500 and from 3/21/23 to 5/17, so that falls in line with when that main line breaks would have taken place, which is probably.
Right, we've already established that. Usually delete.
Okay.
Significant.
So since it's been repaired, we need to give evidence of repair to Toho so that they can reimburse us. We need to be able to track the reimbursement. There are also several over 5 meters that for the last 8 months show no usage whatsoever of reclaimed water. I'll give you those 2. That might give you a hint as to what other meters are shut off and even need some attention.
okay,
So I thought I'd provide you with that. And if you can get with Brett, he can give you Barbara's contact information, and she is great to give you any of the data
You got your,
and run those logistics.
It wasn't you, it was papers on the microphone.
Okay,
okay.
so that would help.
Alright.
Anything else that you want to report to us?
We just been doing the maintenance. We installed 2 oak trees at the school today, 45 gallons. They'll be staked Monday. We'll be watering them by bucket. So we won't even, whether that particular zone's running or not, we're still gonna make sure that
There
the
is
water.
no zone.
And our field staff already been emailed to make sure they're watering daily for the first 60 days.
Needs to replace it for infrared.
Next to the school, we haven't identified, let me know if you do find irrigation in that. If you find irrigation in that right of way, or that verge area
Mhm.
next to the school, let me know, and I will try and get, because my understanding is if there is irrigation in there, the school controls the water that goes to that.
Okay.
And I will try and work with the principal and the county staff. I have some contacts with them. So.
I do have a question.
Okay,
Last month, we approved the Nature and Animal Committee was gonna plant some amaryllis and spike bulbs, and you guys were gonna tell us where to put them.
Mhm.
And we have the volunteers ready to put them in, we just need to know where.
I am available for whenever you guys would like to go over there and I can give my recommendations at any
Give you a
time.
card.
Awesome. That will work perfect.
Great. Any other board members have questions of Nick?
Leaf pickup, was that done?
We're still working on it, with the rain and with the fertilizer. We didn't wanna go crazy with it. We wanted that, granular fertilizer to soak in. But there is in areas that hasn't been fertilized. We were doing some removal.
Okay. And then what about the areas that were fertilized in your rating? Will they be picked up later?
Yes, we'll constantly be doing it, especially in areas that were neglected, over the course of some time.
Okay.
So we're constantly gonna be, removing those. We have hot spots that are really bad, like you had discussed with me last week. And I also discovered a couple other areas. So they're on the list, the top of the list for when it comes to leaf removal, to visit those areas first.
Beautiful.
We want the grass to fill in and look nice.
Yeah.
Wonderful. It's really been needing.
I have one last question, since we're still fixing the irrigation, is there
Okay.
any spots in the grass that are dying that we need to like look at, fix?
Well, we have hot spots, yeah. I mean, that's probably along with the, the budget. We found some spots like at the end of the cul-de-sac, that one's pretty bad. By the soccer field with the splash pad, the whole thing went down instead of just the splash pad. So we're rebounding in that area as well. So there's a few spots. The rain's gonna help, but when the rain stops, it'll become an issue again.
Right.
That's why we still wanna keep progressing with the irrigation.
And also, one last one, when you give us the updated quote, can you guys give us kind of an estimate when you guys think you could complete this task? Like a time frame?
Yes, we can just be mindful that like we can only know what's broken until
No, I
the one,
understand.
okay,
Just kind of like give us a
Ballpark.
Yeah.
forward looking.
ballpark
Yeah.
estimate.
It's not a.
I can give a ballpark
Yeah, it's not
estimate.
a-
Okay. All right,
In writing, it's just-
absolutely.
Right, anybody else? Okay, Nick, if you don't have anything else, then we'll let you go home and have dinner.
All righty. Well, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
you.
I will be in contact with you shortly.
That's good. Thank you.
All right. So that's our contractors report. We'll move on to the next item on our agenda, the consent agenda. We have the minutes from the regular meeting of April 27th, 2023. Again, as
Amended
they are.
summary.
They are summary minutes, not the near verbatim. So if you do want the near verbatim, we can remove this from the consent agenda and wait and review and pass near verbatim next month. It's the pleasure of the board. Our policy has been to do the near verbatim minutes. We also have the April financial statements, as well as number 276, April 2023 invoices and check register. So I've got some comments about the invoices and check register, but I'll let anybody go first on either of those three items.
Maybe we discuss and then we can have a motion as to what we're gonna do. I'm happy with tabling the minutes until we have more near verbatim. I don't know how the rest of the board feels. And then maybe we go over your questions and then we move to approve the consent agenda with these corrections or amendments or revisions.
Okay. Does anybody else, is that,
Sounds good to me.
as far as the minutes, we'll wait, we'll not approve these.
Well, I'll make the motion once you're done
Okay.
here.
Right. Anything on the April financials? Comments, questions? I'm still looking for, we did not get our breakout and I did not see any money that's come back to us. We've had some refunds that we're expecting, and so I think you were tracking down a few of those and where that money went, the 22,000 refund from Toho.
Yeah, that was applied in 22, but I still
Right,
haven't
but
seen
still
how
has-
it's gonna be
also
reflected
come-
over here.
And I don't see it from Q-Tech Rock either. Where are they gonna give us back 13,000?
Mhm.
13,000.
Yeah.
It's just not reflected in our.
Yeah, you sent
I
it,
did, I have that.
yeah. But we haven't seen it hit
Okay.
or show up. In the invoices and check register, there are a couple of things I want to go over. The car and Collier for the alleyway. I have several concerns with the categories there. Has this been approved for payment yet by our engineer, or where are we?
We haven't made the final payment, but we
No,
made the
just
first one.
the first payment that they've applied for.
Yeah.
I was concerned of their management of traffic, the MOT at 26,475. It was very poorly done. I know that David was not here on site. But they do not put up barricades. They just drop 3 cones at the end. And we had traffic rolling over the fresh pavement,
In many areas.
caused some damage. They didn't communicate well. I have problems approving that. There was no signage as should have been out. They had the clearing and grubbing for 7,900. But I didn't see any, there was some minor digging for the ribbon curves, but I saw no clearing or grubbing that went on. And David, I'm confused. It says compacted subgrade 12 inches. Can you explain to me what that was?
Yeah. We'll talk about this Monday. That has to do with the compaction underneath the extension of the pavement and or the ribbon curb.
Okay. That's a 12-inch. Then there's another compacted subgrade contingency allowance. What is?
Could have been the trenches they put in.
Okay, they had a line item trenches. Then they gave an optional base roof 04, which is 6 inches. I'm not sure what that is.
I'll look it up. I wish we would talk about this on Monday. You're hitting me cold turkey with all this stuff. We had this pre-meeting on Monday. I don't know why you're doing this.
Monday, I don't know anything about Monday.
A pre-call. This would have been perfect time for me to look into this and respond back.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, but I just got to this today. I looked at this and I was really confused, and our concrete ribbon curves, they're cracking up. I mean.
And we have garbage trucks trying to
This
cover
was
them.
before the garbage trucks went in. David, I'm sorry, but
I'm not gonna do this to this contractor, Teresa. I mean, you guys, I've had everybody in their world second guessing. I've known these guys for many, many years. I know the inspector for many years. And I'm not gonna do this to the vendor. I walked it today, every square foot, I found 9 problem areas. I think overall looks great. I really do, but we can sit here for hours and talk about how we're gonna reduce their fees or take it out of their approved budget.
I'm just really concerned. Dan, can you put up some pictures for me? Because before I even came on this board, the board was considering alleyway paving, and I did a lot of investigation and research. And everything they said to look out for and be concerned about is showing up in this paving project. This shows there's a area where they mill, and right next to an area where they have not yet milled, and they milled approximately a ½ inch down in many areas. However, it was very uneven. Is the next one, Dan? If you can see, some places were totally devoid of any type of asphalt at all. It had all chipped up. I guess it did not adhere to the sub base well, and it totally came off. Yet then you measure, it was a major step from sub base to ½ inch up to that remaining road base that was not milled. Let's see the next one, Dan. And this was all the way around, so some of it was able to accept the 1 inch of pavement they put back down, but others of it, if they laid 1 inch in those voided areas, then they were only getting maybe 1/4 to ½ inch on the rest of the pavement. Okay, Dan, next one. And this goes throughout all the alleyways. The new alleyway, they laid the asphalt down. They didn't finish the edges well. Okay, next one. The asphalt has gone over. We don't have the nice even edges. And it's we've got a lot of millings and things in the new drains. We have a lot of ponding areas everywhere. They're going back and filling in the ponding areas. But that's just chasing the ponding areas further down and leaving a big patch like spot there. They didn't do any of the pollution control or protection of our stormwater systems. We had an enormous amount of millings and asphalt down in there. Then we have also the cracking that is in the ribbon curves. And I was concerned about this. They had not done the compaction under many of the ribbon curves. Some of them are setting on some of the halfway on the road base and are halfway on totally uncompacted area. So this is the edge where a driveway. They didn't even come close to getting up to the top of the driveway with the asphalt. And then we have plants that are actually not growing in the crevice between the driveway and the asphalt, but actually growing out of the asphalt itself. So I can't imagine. And then we don't have straight edges on any of the driveways. So these are just some of my concerns. And, you know, I'd like them to try and correct a lot of these and come up. And I didn't see the job that I thought 2/3 of $1 million would have gotten us. That's $647,000 that we're going to spend on this. And I'm just not, I expected a really good quality job. And the question now is, do we have an independent group come in and evaluate it? And see what the problem areas are. Because again, standing water deteriorates the asphalt very quickly. So these are my concerns. And these are my concerns about going ahead and making payments.
All right, my turn, I guess.
Yes.
If you remember correctly, we did a public advertisement. Not one contractor bid on this, and we had all the big boys download the plans and nobody was interested. So I was given the permission. Thank you, Michael, to let me know if you go public. So I called the guys that I've worked with for many years. And they teamed with Middlesex, who is the county's contractor for milling and resurfacing. When you do work like this in an alleyway, it's not going to be like a brand new development. I think you guys think we're building a model home and it's going to look crystal clear. You're ripping up with this machinery, you're ripping up the old asphalt, you're laying on the new asphalt. It's not going to be squeaky clean perfect. It's a rehabilitation project. And we had an inspector out there from an international firm. The guys I worked with for many years, Middlesex. And we're sitting here questioning, I think, somebody's integrity and quality of work. After the fact,
But that's my job. I mean.
so we're waiting till we're done.
No, I called you numerous times during the.
And I talked to the contractors and they assured me that
You're right, they insured you.
I'm not going to question their integrity. Teresa, I've known them for many years. I don't look at people and think they're trying to screw me over. I take people for their word. And then I have an independent guy out there watching them who said they were walking behind the machine as they're laying the asphalt. Yeah, it may be less than an inch in one area and maybe more than an inch in the other. The base, I was told by everybody, was in horrible shape. And you're going to see cracking in less than 6 months because the lime rock base or soil cement base is a mess. And I already saw cracking already. And you were not going to pay to do roadway reconstruction.
I don't know. We weren't given the opportunity to even make that decision.
What decision? Do roadway reconstruction?
Right.
So you're going to pay $2 million to redo there's no way you would have done that.
I don't know what roadway reconstruction is going to cost.
When you're stalled
right
from that.
now. I mean, we're paying $647,000 for. I mean, if they had they didn't even try to protect our stormwater system. They didn't even try. They didn't do the first bit of work to really manage this project. They left us out. I apologize to everybody here that I didn't see the handwriting on the wall when they kept giving us contradictory information or not providing.
And
us
they were held
information at all.
hostage by the equipment they were had to order. I mean, they weren't doing it purposely. I mean,
But it's been a nightmare from day one, and I see real structure.
I gotta be honest, I thought it was a good job. I'm not just saying that because I'm sticking up for them. I think it turned out well. It really did. Yes, I do have, we walked every bit of it this morning and we have 6 areas they're gonna fix. And the driveway you put your tennis shoe next to is on the list. And one of the inlets,
There are
they,
about 12 driveways like that
well,
or more. I mean, that's why I tried over and over and over again to get you to come and walk with
I am
me.
paying somebody $25,000. You want to pay me at my rate to be out here? I'm
I
trying to keep,
just wanted you to come and see what was going on.
I relayed everything I got from Joe and Carol and you to the inspector and to the contractor. I did not ignore your emails and your photographs. I said, guys, stay on top of this, make sure it's getting done right. I mean, I wasn't ignoring them, trust me.
Well, and it sounds like there are still things on the punch list, so maybe the resolution is let's make sure that we maybe reconcile what you have on your punch list, what Teresa identified with the photographs, and make sure we're in agreement.
That's pay request number 1. There's still a big chunk you haven't even seen yet.
I would suggest that we keep on top of this with the balance, which is 2/3. We're looking at paying the first third. They certainly did at least that much work. So I would suggest that we not withhold that we approve the invoice and check register, invoice summary and check register for this first payment, and we move forward. And any additional issues that you have identified, that you communicate them with David to add to the punch list.
Are there companies that will do borings to make sure that we have what we need for a good alleyway project?
You can Swiss cheese all these alleys all you want. I mean, there's companies go out there and so if we find one area that's less than an inch, another area that's an inch and a half, we can spend a lot of time and money trying to quantify to either prove these guys cheated you or you got what you were paid for. It did say an average in an inch.
And she's telling you that she's getting cheated on. She wants the job done correctly. You can get what to pay for.
I think it was done correctly, but I'm not gonna sit
Well,
there. and-
obviously, there's not, because there's things that are missing.
There's always a
And they've
punch
been
list at
identified.
the end of a project. There's always a punch.
Yeah, now
list.
we did a punch list today and they're gonna fix that. And so there's a retainage. They're gonna be kept at a minimum. Besides the second pay request that's already come in that we reviewed and commented on. But that's what the retainage is for, is the punch list items to be cleaned up. And we walked them today and they agreed to do what we walked on. Now I'll look at your additional list, but I walked the curbs and the garbage trucks are already pushing the boulders off the edge of the pavement. It's gonna be a problem, so.
Right, and that's why we had the ribbon curbs put in, so that we wouldn't have them pushing that asphalt out, that the ribbon curbs would hold them in.
That's all they're intending to do, but
Right.
you got boulders out there already, but I saw tire marks on the boulders, so I don't know how we're gonna continue to police that with Race Pro. Or it could be a guy pulling his Jeep or his boat in the back of a pickup truck. I mean, all the curves are already being botched up by the homeowners, the residents, FedEx, garbage trucks. I mean, that's why we put the ribbon curbs there, to keep the asphalt from rattling off the edge, and it keeps it tight.
Right.
Motion. Related to.
Right, the cracking I'm seeing does not indicate wear and tear damage.
Concrete doesn't just crack on its own. There has to be a force or a pressure on it. You don't pour concrete and then it just cracks.
Unless
So-
it doesn't have a good base.
No, something had to be applied on that surface. There's no reason a car or a pickup truck, and whoever lives there, should have to go off the edge of these curbs. Unless you,
I don't know, I'm finding 3 to 4 already fairly serious cracks in every single one of these ribbons. And I don't think people are driving over every.
You didn't see the
But-
pictures from the garbage trucks? I mean, the big, huge, wide
I
wheels?
saw that, but that's not happening with all of them. And like I'm saying, it's uniform through all the ribbon curves. So I don't know if it was a concrete problem or what the deal is. I'm just letting you know so you can further research it. That's what I'm looking for from you. I'm hoping that you're scrutinizing the work from the point of view of the district and not of the vendor.
I am making sure you're getting the product we envision the department should get. And I drove it, I walked it. I think it turned out well. Is it perfect? No. And we agreed that the things are gonna fix.
Okay.
I'll look at your additional list and I'll talk to the guru, so.
Okay. The other items I have, the Infomark invoice. There is a recording fee for this past month's verbatim minutes, which we did not get, and it was for $350 instead of what should have been $275, but it should be off altogether.
And that was my fault, because when it happened, I didn't relate it to them.
Okay. Also the record storage fee is $700.
That, I already have it in email, they're crediting that,
You're letting them know now.
yes.
The OUC bill, we've still got 2 bills for Harmony Track K. Again, we had a situation where we went over the agreement and everything. The board needs to approve accepting that, and my understanding is it hasn't, since it's showing up on our bill. Somehow
Yep.
it's
track-
been signed.
Yep.
I didn't sign it, but
There's not, no. So back when track pay came up, Sean was here, he worked with you, we have emails. That we wanted, in order for us to accept track pay, would have been done previously, is for the developer to show that they paid. Everything that they have to pay, they sent us a copy of the check. And all that, so we were able to move forward and accept the lights and track pay,
Mhm.
and that's what happens. And that's what you're paying for.
okay. Well, we need to realize that the agreement says that we need to approve that, so do we need to bring that to the board? You just read the.
Well,
Bring it
I,
back to.
I looked at what, the K 400, K 600 and K 900. Is K different than those 3?
No, this is the actual street
This is
lights,
the
not
streetlights,
the
not
track,
No,
not
This is
a
a
piece
totally
of
different
property.
issue. Okay, then I'm not sure that I've looked at that issue. If I have, I've forgotten about it.
yeah, it's a normal,
Is it OUC
agreement.
agreement?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
all it is, where it's the lease, and so what happened was the developer had track pay, all the streetlights, they're done. Back, I don't even know how long, it was when Sean was here, they reached out
Yeah, it was about 4 months ago,
And
'cause we
said-
paid 4 months ago.
and said, we want to turn these over to the district, so I researched it, and what they do, Sean actually spoke with Teresa. And said they need, they have to provide us a copy of the check showing that they paid all their
Mhm.
pre.
I remember
It's a
seeing
large
that.
chunk of money, and then once that's done and it's paid in full, then we would just transfer the account into the district's name, and then that's essentially what happened.
Okay.
So that's
well,
where we are
Right.
today.
Sure, and I just know from reviewing that agreement as it related to the other tracks, it was that there's an engineer certification.
Yeah, though, this was a separate section.
Yeah,
It
separate
said the
section.
CDD had
I
to
mean,
accept it. Now-
Ideally, if to answer your question, I mean, it should come before the board and we can
Always, yeah.
formally accept it. That's the ideal way to do it, then there's no question about it, but I mean, it's not necessarily required unless the agreement says. Subject to board approval or
Right.
anything.
And it doesn't, but that's, again, I typically, when we do turnovers from anything to the district, the engineer walks it, whoever is needed to be there walks it. Then they submit all the documentation to the board and you all accept it.
Mhm.
Streetlights, that's something that came up and we followed suit with whatever, reached out to the chair, got that done. We did get all the documentation, they paid whatever, but moving forward, we can absolutely do that.
Yeah, I just I'd feel better if we either
Sure.
ratified that, just so nobody comes and says, well, why are you paying these bills? I didn't see it
Sure.
accepted.
So we'll put track pay on your next agenda and the board can ratify it.
Yeah, there's just the streetlights
Yeah.
until we get Dave. I
That's all
think
that there is,
David's,
right?
yeah, David's waiting for as-bills and a couple of other things from them, and they're waiting for tracking them. And then the PFS work, the bill for payment is on the agenda or in this package. Is there any problem with us going ahead? They currently have the contract, but the work got done before the contract. Is there any problem with us going ahead and
They got that
authorizing the payment?
authorization.
Okay, well,
I don't,
I mean, I think you're gonna be approving the contract tonight. Did they sign the
Well,
one that we sent to them?
they've already approved this work to be
Well, no, I
done.
understand that, but I'm just saying that that was what we attached as the initial work to the agreement. My question is, did they sign the agreement?
Not yet.
Are they objecting to signing the?
Yeah,
agreement?
that's,
No, they haven't necessarily said anything. They were wondering if the email I got back from them when I sent it over was this for the work that they're trying to propose now or the refinance and so.
well, but there will be a work.
A work authorization for that additional
For
work
the
if the board
extra.
approves it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Um,
so,
I'm sorry, I don't think I answered your question. I don't see a concern with going ahead since it's already been done. It was done under your other approval process. Again, the agreement was just to get a master agreement in place so that each time this stuff comes up, we can just do a work authorization and we're not having to sign their proposals, which are written by their attorneys.
right. So I just wanted to be sure of that. And then we also have Will Scott, the staff trailer that's been returned. I know Brett's been working on this, but I didn't want to approve it with the $2,213.18 for the knockdown charge. We're not paying that, right?
Correct.
We should pay that.
Okay, but it's in our approvals for our invoices.
It
So
is.
I wanted to make sure.
In Abbott, short paid the knockdown rate, to
Well, I mean, the motion to approve them can just be, with that adjustment.
With the exception, yeah, of this, so let's keep this in the amendment. And also, another invoice they have for the storage unit. They're charging us a full month for it. That's invoice 90175940023. They're billing us for the entire month of May when they removed it on May 8th. So that needs to be addressed also. And those are my concerns about the invoices.
So, short of enumerating every one of those things that was discussed, can I say that I move to approve that I move to approve the invoice
Consent.
and the what?
Consent
agenda.
The consent agenda, except for the minutes from the previous meeting, and except for the invoices as discussed from Infomark for recording fee for verbatim minutes, record storage fee, the Toho, no, not
No.
Toho bill, the Will Scott staff trailer knockdown charge, the
The storage use
storage unit charge
for May.
for between May 8th and May 31st. That's it, right?
Yes.
And approve the
Financial.
financials and check run summary.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Do I hear any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
And
the Will Scott storage is prorated. There for May. Right?
No, $79.03.
No, that's for the staff trailer proration. If you look at the container for the other invoice, it's not prorated. Mhm.
I'll look at it.
Yep, it's for the full month with a late payment fee as well.
So May prorated and then the knockdown, we already took care of that
Mhm.
one. Right?
And if you all, when you put the invoices in our package, if they've changed it, like they've taken off taxes or they've taken off a late fee or an interest charge or something. If you'll just note that on the invoice, so when we see it, I don't have to go looking it up to see if it actually happened that way or.
Sure, maybe that would fun.
I appreciate that. All right, the next item on our agenda is a presentation of the fiscal year 2024 proposed budget.
All right, I know we all just went through it. I'll run briefly down for you if you'd like. And then you guys can talk about the point of contention that you still haven't really determined. And then we can kind of move forward. So essentially what we did was we went line for line. We'll start at expenditures. Essentially everything stayed the same with the exception of management fee is 3% increase in your contract. Miscellaneous contingency, we got rid of that line. Legal advertising, all of that stayed the same. Meeting expenses, we increased that, and that was to include if the board decides to go with campus suite, which we'll be determining later, so I can actually lower that amount if you decide not to do that and keep it the way you're doing it now. It also includes if you have to pay for future meeting space when this space goes away, because currently you don't pay for this space. Okay. So that's an administrative. Your field contract increased 10.9%. The reason for that was to cover labor expenses. We didn't increase it last year. So there's about a 25% labor rate increase. So that would be basically a pass through to the field contract. So that was an increase. Your benchmark increase, you did take on a new landscaper mid budget here. So with it being 8 months of a carryover, essentially 8 months from now to the carryover into your new budget, the full amount per year too is $710,000, but you're going to be paying $699,567. Okay, so there was an increase there.
How does that compare to our previous?
About 200,000, I believe,
More.
roughly a little more than that. That was the increase overall. From one contractor to the next.
May I just add that we had rehired the same contractor as previously with the hope that they would improve their service, and they did not.
And even then was an increase of, looks like over 100K from the year before.
Mhm.
So that's when we went out to bid again.
Gotcha.
We did increase landscape replacement from 35 to 50. And that includes any kind of landscape replacements, enhancements, fire ant treatments, and sycamore tree treatments. Would all go into that line. Your electricity, street lighting, water and sewer, obviously those have all gone up. So we did a 5 to 7% increase in that. You are taking on additional street lights, which is also included in that as well. And your communication, telephone 500, your refuse removal, for the dumpster, they did increase, so that's a contract. Ponds, Buck Lake Conservation, that stayed the same, pool stayed the same. Your next increase. We took out the storage lot, so we took out that money, the end of that closed. Those all stayed the same. Parks and facilities went up from 25 to 45. Again, that's anything that's needed for your field staff to maintain just general stuff in your community.
Facilities.
That's essentially, you have one line item
Everything
aside
you
from
want.
chemicals and stuff. Boats and equipment stayed the same. Garden lot stayed the same. Essentially, they right now try to spend what they bring in or what have you. So it's a wash from revenues to here. That's all it's budgeted is what they bring in. Invasive follow-ups, this money is in there for anything having to do with your invasive species that you paid last year to do. Brad is currently keeping up on those, but if for some reason think it's overgrown again and quickly, and you have to make a decision to have a company come in and do it again, we got a cost for that, and that's where the 105 comes from.
Hopefully, we won't have to spend
Yeah,
it.
if you don't, you can move that money to reserves, like use it for another project, what have you. Go on down, that all stayed the same. We were able to, the one thing, oh, we did leave vehicles in there, sorry. And then the reserve other, that's their contribution. We left that the same, and that is something that the board was kind of discussing in the workshop before coming into this meeting. If it needs to go higher, leave it the same. What have you. So this budget that you're looking at now essentially brings your assessments to an 8.7% increase.
Well, just to be more accurate,
Mhm.
this budget doesn't have the real numbers in it. There were changes that
Yeah.
aren't shown here. But based on what we discussed, the numbers would be if we put 300,000 toward reserves, then it would be an 8.9.
8.7%
increase.
Then
Then there was,
everything I just went through.
right, then there was a discussion, well, really, we should put more away because we're only gonna have 141,000 left after we spend the money on the alleyways, and we have all these other things that we still need to do. In an email that Angel sent us, there were other items that on the reserve study are coming up to need replacement. Plus we have the field services office or community maintenance facilities, sorry. To think about, which is, going to be a sizable expense. And so, the question was, do we keep it at 300,000? Do we raise it to 350 or 400 or whatever? Some of us feel like 8.7% after a year in which we had a 20-something% increase is enough. And others felt like, well, it's not that much per house. We should just try to increase it so we have a safety net. So that's
And I
where we
can tell you the numbers we played with. If I was to put 400,000 in there instead of 300,000, it brings you to 13.1.
And 350 was like a 10%.
Yeah.
For the
10.9.
For the O and M, and then if you do, not everyone's paid off their bond, most people haven't, so if you add the bond, then it's more like
It's like a 6.8% increase overall. But nobody, to be clear, nobody really looks at that overall number because we're more concerned with.
Of course.
what I'm doing that deal. Yeah. So,
Like $50 a house.
Yeah.
For the extra 100,000. Instead of going by percentages, I look at the dollars.
Mhm.
There are different ways of looking at it.
Impact on the bucket.
Right, I mean, I don't care what the percentage is, it's what, I get X number of dollars a month to live on. And so if I have to pay $50 more next year. So that's, I was just letting you know that the percentages.
That equates to each household.
well,
Right,
on average,
on
because
average,
Right.
right.
lots have different sizes, and so they pay different.
You've seen this chart. Okay. So, because the increase last year of 22%, the maximum increase was $350. A lot of people said theirs went up 3,000, but they didn't understand how it really works. And you can look anyone's up online on the tax website. So it was the max, I think 350 was the most, and that was on the large, it was very wonderful, beautiful homes in Harmony. Most of us, mine went up $142, so it's on some ordinary Joe.
So essentially what you're looking at is, we just went through this. So that was really when we ended, what your point of kind of threshold was. You wanted to adjust that number, leave it at 300. And again, based off of this budget, it's 8 point whatever, we would send out the letters to everyone, but you still have the opportunity between now and your final.
Yeah,
to-
you don't send out letters anymore, it's on the trim.
We're gonna be sending out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We got
Like,
like.
there we go.
Okay.
Let them know what their potentially what their budget could be.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's a-
I thought the trim notice did that same.
No,
We have to agree.
I have a question about that.
Some people believe that, but when you really dig into it, not so much.
Right.
Okay, I just want to be sure. 'Cause
Yeah, we.
Yeah, no, it's.
It would
there's-
save
there's
us a lot of
information
money.
that's
We
not
don't
on
send
the
out that
trim
many
notice
letters.
that's- Is referenced in one.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
are we constrained to just sending out the trim notice only by itself, or can we add something for certain households? Can we add something else about a
So-
different issue?
So my most conservative advice is don't add anything else in the envelope. Because it can dilute from the legal effect of the notice.
Right.
However, that's very, very conservative advice. I have lots of clients who will do some sort of an explanation of. This is the reason, these are the 3 categories of things that we are increasing. That are causing the increase. Please come to the hearing and let us know. So for instance, I have another district I worked on Monday. They want to fence all their amenities, that's $270,000. They're debating whether to do that. So that's in their notice to the residents saying, hey, if you don't want this, come tell us and let us know. Inflationary pressures, they want to increase the amount they're putting in the reserve. And then we're going to start staffing an amenity center we had never staffed before. And so the letter going out to them says, here's the 4 reasons why it's proposed to increase by 12% or 13%. Here's our hearing, come to the hearing and let us know what you want us to do, because some of them are discretionary. They don't have to staff that amenity center, they don't have to put in the fence. They do want to do their reserves, and then the inflationary costs they can't do anything about unless they can find different vendors who are somehow immune from inflation.
And we do, I've done that in many districts, and it can be short and sweet, bullet points. Your proposed budget is X amount, this is what we plan to do with that.
But it's an insert into the
Correct.
envelope, it's not part of the legal.
No, it's separate, it'll be page 2.
And we can't add a page 3 to say to certain homes that have a verge that the CDD is no longer maintaining, to say, please remember to maintain your verge and to pick up.
Not in that letter, we can send something out separately to them or email them or call them or something, but
That'll be in supervisor's request.
To the HROA.
I was just gonna say, I think the HROA is already been on it, aren't they? Well.
Well, but there, it's still, I think the CDD sent a letter out to those residents, but I think that they either forgot a lot of them or, yeah, so. All right, anyway, let's move on. The question is, I think there are 2 of us who, from our discussion, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong.
Now,
There are 2 of us who wanted to keep it at 300,000, the reserve number, and 2 of us who wanted to raise it more.
but
Well,
I do want to put this out there for all of us to remember. Is that this should be the worst case scenario.
This is the ceiling that would be
This is the
passed.
ceiling. We can't go up from here, but over the next 2 months, we can come down.
correct.
And over the next 2 months, we have to make a decision on how much we're gonna pay for the new community maintenance facility and where we're gonna locate it. And we also have to make a decision on
The splash pad, the
The-
fences.
some, yes, many other,
Village trail.
Yes.
Fencing along 192, there's a lot you need to consider.
right, there are a huge amount of other costs that we need to consider. So it's better to go high, even though we'll then take the hit in social media and everything else. But then we can come down.
Potential to bring it down.
If we don't go high enough, then we're really gonna have to cut some things out if these other costs stay as high as they're looking
So
like they
let's
are.
have the worst case, so we don't have enough money to do our job. What happens then? Can we pull from reserves or?
Well, our reserves are very low right now
Oh, you missed
because we've done a huge amount of work, and this alleyway paving project hit us. It was about 3 times what it was anticipated to be. So it hit us really hard.
Mhm.
So we only have about, what, 180,000?
Just under 2.
Okay, and so that's not gonna pay for a lot when you look at community maintenance facility and that type of stuff, because we've already transferred this year's 300,000 over it. So this is 180 left total. Now, we're not totally broke. We have some other,
That's what
the operating funds are in addition to it, but we don't like to even look at that.
Right.
Because that's,
It's like the savings account.
our push.
Yes, cushion.
But if we had some really high what we'd have to look at is shutting down some of our facilities, you know, to save money. Cutting back in different areas, and unfortunately, those are the things that our residents want the most. And, you know, they don't think about our stormwater system until the hurricane hits. But they do think about being able to go out on a boat or swim in the pool and stuff like that. That's where we're at right now. So again, this is the worst case. We can't go up from here. So. Okay. Oh, sorry, I thought somebody.
So is there anything you want to add in here? Or do you want to approve it, approve the resolution based on this version?
Well, there are already some other corrections that we had covered in the workshop. I'm guessing it sounds like just the big question is how much of the reserve contribution we want. I mean, is there anything else that needs to be discussed or decided aside from that?
I think the reserve is it. So, although I really want to stay at the 300,000. But I don't think in good conscience at this point, looking at the numbers for the community maintenance facility and the fence and knowing the pressures we're under with the county on those two issues, that I can do that. So I would be willing to go at least to the 350 for the reserves. That would give us a 10.9% O&M increase.
350?
That's $25 a house.
That would put you 10.9.
A residence, and
That's
and
it.
that's basing it on approximately 2,000.
And again,
residents.
I wish we could send out, instead of a percentage, I wish we could tell each resident, this is how much yours
No.
increase.
Well, they'll see that, right?
Well, it's in there.
No, but I mean, on social media.
Well,
Yeah, I-
really. I mean, I tried one time and
It's not
that's why I'm not on Facebook
Yeah.
anymore because,
I don't like to pay more money, so.
Yeah, and certain people inflate it to make it look horrendous, you know, like you're gonna have a.
$3,000 bill, yeah.
yeah.
An additional.
Well, I offered to help people figure it out. I
And
can look
it's-
it up and post it
yeah.
for them. I didn't have any volunteers.
So,
It sounds like for 350.
So I'm on 350.
And see who disagrees.
400.
Well, I'm still at 400.
Okay, so we got two at 400. Are you still at
I'll-
300 or? Okay, I'm at
I'm at
350.
300.
Last year, how much did we take?
Pardon?
Last year, how much did we?
22% increase.
Did we plan that ahead or we had to go back?
The
No, we charged everybody
22%.
22% more in the O&M portion of the budget.
And let me further explain the history. I don't know if you have heard about the history. How long has it been since we had an
I don't know, it
increase?
was 10 years. maybe.
Oh, it's been 10+ years. It basically, previous boards have not increased assessments to match inflation. And you know how things have gone up over the last 10 to 15 years. But there's been no increase. So now.
Until last year.
We've had to winnow down, and now basically everything's coming due at the same time. We're about 20 years old, so everything's needing to be rehabbed. And also we're behind the 8 ball. The 22% increase just basically
Almost a little bit.
kind of brought us up a little bit, but again, did not.
28.1%, this is your letter.
It's fine.
Don't say 22 because it's a lot.
I'm sorry, somebody said 22.
You got the numbers here. You can
Okay.
put it out.
That's
Anyway, so we're trying, we also have to back up our reserves because I think they sent you the reserve study.
Yeah.
That has the list of things we are going to face in the next 10 years or so. So that's just some of the background.
Okay.
For your understanding.
That's just the O&M. That's. Because our debt repayment does not change. That
We don't
stays the
play with
same,
that.
Right.
I'm okay with the 350.
So now where are we? 350, 350.
Three and
I'm at 350, she's at 300, 4.
I'll say 350.
Okay. I'll make the
I mean, this
motion.
isn't something we take lightly. I mean, it's,
You're putting it in and we'll do the whole budget all at once, right?
Yeah, so there's 350. So leaving the budget, we went line for line. Everything that we went over, 350 is the contribution to reserves. And that puts you at a 10.9% increase. Okay, so if everyone's good with that, then you can move on to the resolution.
We have before us resolution 2023-06, approving the budget of the proposed budget
And
setting a public hearing. And this hearing date is when and
June
when?
15th.
June 5th,
No, it's
July.
Yeah,
Oh,
July
I'm sorry.
27th.
I'm sorry.
It's at your July meeting.
Right, July 27th at 6 p.m. Here in this location. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll
I have a
second.
motion- I have a second.
uh,
Any-
it had come up during the workshop. It's a later point that we would be setting next year budget scheduling, right? That has nothing to do right now with this motion.
Yeah, it'll be at the public hearing when you approve your annual meeting schedule. We want to change
Okay,
your workshop date. You can get it done a little earlier, not
Yes.
just the same day of your meeting.
Yes.
Yeah. I'll just miss it.
No, that's okay.
Realize.
We want to start it earlier.
All right, any other discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Okay. The next item on the agenda is our new business. We have a master agreement for the fountain repair services. Not sure how this jumped on here. That was drafted by our attorney. And we're going to also use it as a master. He was kind enough to give us a way to use it for other vendors also, as long as we stick to it. And if there are any peculiar, I'm sorry. Any differences we need to touch base back.
yeah, I just want to make sure whenever I provide a template,
Mhm.
I'm providing that for you all to use as a
With
guide.
caution.
But if I don't actually see the proposal and it has terms and conditions that somebody slaps on and attaches to this template agreement, then that might not be a good thing. So we suggest it saves some money if the district can fill out the template contract.
Run it by-
Send it to us, like in a completed version from them with the attachments and everything. We can do a quick run through. If there's any problems, we can point it out, but otherwise, then we can say, yeah, that looks fine.
And
That would be
the-
our suggestion, but
Right.
you can use it however you wish.
The reason that is of concern is we ran into that with a significantly old fencing contract that someone had just slapped the page from the vendor's agreement as the attachment because it had the prices on it. But it also included a very damaging phrase that they never intended to be a part of the contract, but that may end up being interpreted to be part of the contract. So again, I just caution you, yes, we don't want to run up a lot of attorney's fees, but we don't want to be dollar foolish or penny wise and dollar. So we need to be careful on how we do these things. That has been sent, Brett, to Professional Fountain Services, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so hopefully, since the work has already been approved by the board, when he gets it back signed, I'll go ahead and sign it. And
Yeah, we can go ahead.
that will,
We can do it now, approve it, ratify it, either one, but that way it doesn't have to come back before the board, and in fact, all you'll see in the future are work authorizations that are one pagers. That staff can go ahead and prepare, rather than having to get a contractor sign a proposal that again, is written by their attorney, not yours.
Even though we've already approved,
yeah, do
The
we
work
have to
was done to
ratify it?
ratify?
Normally, once it's approved, once The
Well,
expenditure.
You haven't approved
You haven't
the master
seen this.
contract.
You
You haven't
haven't seen
approved a
it.
contract
No.
to be used for the future.
Oh, okay, so you're looking for ratification or
Of the template.
approval of the template. to
No,
use.
no, what I'm saying is there was some work that was done. We attached that to this agreement, okay? But this agreement provides every time there's future work that needs to be done by this contractor, staff can just prepare a work authorization, present it to the board, and you can go from there. That way, we have set it up so that it will be simple moving forward when you want to use this vendor. And that way, when you do that work authorization, all the protections that I built into this agreement for the CDD will apply. And that's why we did it that way.
For how long? For a year? For,
Well, I think that we set it out for 3 or 4 years is what we put it out for, but again, you're gonna be approving all the work
Right.
that they do under it.
We won't enter into any work authorizations under this master contract unless approved previously by the board.
Correct.
I understand, but if we're approving a master agreement, I just want to know how long it's good for.
Yep, I'm looking that up right now. That's a fair question.
And when that work authorization comes out, would it reference this?
Agreement.
Yes,
Okay, so then we would know that we're saying this is.
yes, I double checked that.
Section 5B of the contract says the term of this agreement shall be from, and it's blank because I don't know the date that it's going to be signed, through September 30th, 2024. So that's one fiscal year after we complete this one. And shall automatically renew for 3 additional 1-year terms. However, you have the right to terminate this agreement with 30 days notice anytime.
Move to approve the master agreement for fountain repair services.
Okay, I have a motion to approve. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
I have a second.
You have to be fast.
Uh, Any further discussion? Hearing none. I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. All right, the next item on our agenda is
The frontage fence.
the frontage fence. And Angel, do you want to explain what happened with the county on this?
Sure. So the county came out, we did get a violation. I sent that out to the board.
That was 2 months ago.
Yes.
Correct. So what we did, because we had to go out and, get all the material and all that, we asked for an extension. She wasn't able to do the extension right on the spot. I had to submit a consent order to get the extension in place. They call it consent, order agreement. And then we did that. The date in there is September 30th. That they will, it's basically scheduled a hearing on September 30th to go over this violation. The goal here is to get it fixed, the violation that they pointed out, get it fixed, call them and ask them to come out and do another inspection to close this out instead of waiting until September 30th. So we'll do that. Jason has gotten the
Materials.
material in, and they're starting that repairs. The problem that you're gonna run into is it's not going to stop here. That whole thing, you can't clean it, or it's gonna fall apart. A good wind comes through, it's gonna fall apart.
Are you referring to the wood or the actual vinyl?
Fine.
Yeah, there's no wood. It's PVC three rail.
Four rail.
Four rail. And it's 20-something years old. It's just for being in the sun and all that stuff.
And what was the violation reference?
Ditch repair, clean and just falling apart, damage.
Some of the rails just, when the wind blows heavy, just.
Yeah.
So did go through and get different proposals to kind of give you an estimate on that, or to my knowledge, and you can, David and Mike can opine on this, to my knowledge, I don't think there's anything prohibiting you from taking that fence down if you don't want it there.
I've never looked at the development order to see
Yeah.
whether it was required or.
You reviewed the development, didn't you? And you didn't see.
And I did
anything?
not see anything, but.
Okay.
Hopefully I didn't miss anything.
I'm just saying I
Yeah.
haven't been tasked with doing.
Again, in more detail, so that's an option, obviously, or you need to look at repairing the fence, or at least start budgeting to repair the fence.
Now, that's an issue that it would be nice when we send out the letter, if we could have just a card like you said, the other group said, you know, is this important to you? Let us know.
There's not time.
Yeah. Let me go over real quick, the quotes we have in the package are actually for more front linear feet than we need. And we did get the straight line. Did the straight line one go out to everybody, Brett? You are?
Well, I was gonna talk to that because I did speak to Straight Line. They had revisited a proposal that Gerhard had provided November of 21 for 3,300 linear, I think 3,300 linear feet of fence from Straight Line and then Chapco.
Mhm.
They obviously were significantly less because there was less square
That's about
footage
half.
than what we're looking at, right? So, in speaking with Straight Line, actually today, he called me back finally because I had reached out to him about using the map that you had shared.
Mhm.
He said he would honor his price on the current fence quote that he had, which was like $16. It's $15 for materials, $1 for per linear foot to remove. So I just called it $16 per linear foot. He said there's a roughly 6,300 linear feet of fence is what he's saying based off of
Okay,
the
'cause
map.
I measured it and it's about 4,400. So.
We
I-
can get a firm proposal.
We need to
but-
actually get-
Yeah, I mean, he did go to Google Earth. He said based off of what was shared, it was close to 6,300 square feet or linear feet, sorry. That being said, he also mentioned that the past issues that we've already talked about, Mike's aware of with the contract and what was purchased in the past, et cetera, et cetera. But he is willing, and I asked him to send it to me in an email. I was hoping to have that for you to present. Which would have been off the agenda, but he said he would be willing to work with you guys. He threw out a number of approximately $4,000 of a discount from the 8, I think that was already 88, whatever. So I just threw rough numbers together. If it's 6,300 linear feet, it's $108,000 for, and it was a 3-rail fence. We switched from 4 to 3.
Oh, he did go through?
Yeah, he said he would honor that price of $16 linear feet for 3-rail.
Oh, because the email you sent me
It
said four.
correct, it did, but I think you had requested that we get a price for 3-rail as well, so to see if there was any savings.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
he did.
but he said there was no savings, so,
Yeah, he's basically $16 a linear foot,
okay,
so
or
that's,
either 4 or 3.
yeah, it's 63. Yeah, 6,300 linear feet, you're looking at 108 or $100,800 with that estimated 4K difference, you're 96,800. Which is substantially less than the other 3 proposals you have in front of you, but. I don't, I still want a firm, his biggest concern, I'll tell you what he said to me, he said. He goes, is the board going to take action? He goes, last time we were out there for 2 straight days, measuring, getting stuff together, he goes. Did all this work, we bought material, then for 4 years, it was start, stop, start, stop.
Yeah.
I all I said to him is I said, I don't know. I said, the board has to hear this. They have to discuss it. If they make it, there's multiple options, but I told him, I said, they're either gonna tear it down or they're gonna replace it possibly. I did ask him about what grade PVC or vinyl he's gonna use. And he was very upfront. Now, I haven't done my research because I just found this out on the way here, he says there really isn't any grades. There's not a farm grade, there's not a commercial grade, there's not a residential grade. He goes, there is a,
Same.
I'm just telling you what he said. I'm not a fence vendor. He said, what I will tell you is the vinyl fencing you have on Harmony's property, the
Mhm.
reason it feels like newspaper is not because it's old. It's because it was recycled vinyl, which is a product that you can purchase. It's recycled vinyl or vinyl.
Mhm.
So he said that Harmony has recycled vinyl. Again, I'm not a fence expert. I couldn't tell you. It's however many years old. It feels funny, whatever. Yeah, it's sunburnt or sun dry. I don't know, but he
I
didn't.
was told that it was recycled.
Yeah, he said that a lot of people will put in their proposals, commercial grade or farm grade. He goes, it's
It's all the same.
it's all talk. It's just smoke. They all buy the same vinyl from the same vendor. It's just material. It's vinyl.
Okay.
So that's my update on the straight line piece
Mhm.
for another proposal. But again, if the board is considering replacement, I think, and we want to look at getting a firm proposal from straight line, we'll obviously want them to come out and physically measure everything that needs to be replaced and then put a proposal. But he said he would also be willing to work with you guys if you decided that you want to do, 1,500 linear feet at a time. He said even 300 linear feet, he would honor his $16 a foot.
Okay.
So if you broke it into phases, he said he would be okay with that and hold that price. Just, I don't have it in writing. I'm telling you what I was told 4.5 hours ago.
But if he's talking about 3 rail fence, I don't think we can piecemeal because we'd have part 3 rail and part 4. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean,
Something to
if
think about.
budgetarily, if that's what you had to sit, if you did half of it this year and half of it next year, I mean, could you get through it budgetarily? Yeah, I think it would be, I don't think it'd be the end of the world. But if you said, hey, we're gonna do it over a 5-year span, yeah, I think that would look a
Yeah.
little silly.
So just question, last month we approved some kind of minimal repairs
Parts,
to
yeah.
comply with the code enforcement requirements. And so that was about a month ago. Has that work been done?
Well, no, they just picked up the material. We just talked about that.
Yeah, I
Like
thought
last
that's what you
week.
said. So I thought, okay, well, but we approved it a month ago, so.
Also people.
Yeah, they're working on it, but there was also like a 3 to 4 week lead time on the material too.
Right, the problem is that, yes, they're gonna work, they're gonna fix the problems that were code violated on right now. But what's happening is they did a lot of work when we first got the code
We
violation.
pressure washed, we made
They
repairs.
made repairs, they cleaned it up, they thought they were ready. Then the code enforcement inspector didn't come out right away. And when she did come out, more parts are broken. Which meant the code violation continues. And that's what we're gonna be looking at. And eventually, which sounds like September is gonna be the drop dead date. What's gonna happen is they're gonna start fining us $250 a day. Because we can't keep our fence in good.
I see we get a plan to start taking it down if we don't need a fence. And then figure out a path forward to get the new fence up.
And if that's what you want to do, I will absolutely verify and make sure I didn't miss anything.
You're gonna just get it done before September, right?
Right.
And you can make a decision going forward what we want to do. I mean, that shouldn't cost, I mean,
He said $1 a linear foot to take it down, so
so. say
$6,000.
Well, I
Well,
don't,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, he said, I don't know if he's gonna keep that cost if he's just.
Well, I don't know, he put it there, so.
No, I'm just saying, but a lot of times
I
I
have
put
a
that.
email. No,
I bet you got some teenagers. scared.
trust me, yeah, I think we could get it down real quick.
Oh, my teenagers would drive my golf cart into it a few times, knock it down.
well, what if we were to?
I don't think it's in concrete. They should say it's not in concrete.
Well, I don't know.
No, I don't think it's in I don't think there's a 4x4 post in the, I think it is set. in concrete.
Oh, okay.
In front of the east entrance, at least, there's a few of the what do you call them? Balusters or whatever the
Columns.
columns, yeah. So I guess my question is. If we were replacing any or all of this, removal of the old still happens, right? If we take the step of removing now, we're not, you know,
Right.
hamstringing or doing anything that'll mess up our. Or
Exactly.
change how we replace them or make it cost any more to replace them.
It
And-
It
seems,
has to be taken down.
Yeah.
it seems to me like taking it down, leaving it down, and then later putting something up is like, if you're gonna take it down and it's down, then don't put it back up. But if you're gonna replace it, then replace at least what you're taking down.
Right, okay, well,
Right away.
look at it this way, if it has to be taken down to be replaced. Is that what I'm hearing? I mean, it's not, we're not patching anymore, this would be
Oh.
putting new fence in,
Well, that's what's being proposed.
right?
I mean, you
and-
could continue to patch, but how long does it, I mean, then,
Right,
but
You're-
where's the next step on
Put
the,
good money.
code
after
enforcement.
that.
Right, yeah, the sense I get is that we don't want to be doing that. So I think what makes sense then is to start with the removal right now. That's. I mean, that take care of the code violation issue, assuming we check everything PD wise and make sure we're airtight with not needing to have a fence there. So if that step has to be done ahead of any replacement, either way. We do that now, we get it out of the way, we, you know, take care of the code enforcement issue short term. Long term, then we can look at, hey, people will notice that we don't have these, you know, as much fence, you know, in front of the golf course, maybe it doesn't matter as much, but you know, we're. neighborhood H, where it's right next to people's houses, probably has more impacts, and we can get that feedback from people, see where it is, kind of weigh people's reactions and see going forward, rather than the full mile or however long it is that we're looking at replacing. Do it in stages, but,
I like that idea, and the area I've been noticing, because I've been going up and down and looking for, if we take it down, whose homes, or will there be homes exposed? There really aren't that many, except over there near the west entrance.
right.
So what if we took it down and we have a break in the white fence at our conservation area, which is just past the west entrance.
Mhm.
So what if we?
And it's not in that bad a shape on that.
On that west entrance. So what if we just take it down from that conservation area all the way east to where our ownership ends? Now, the golf course can take down theirs or leave it up, because we don't cover that. So that would be in the area that's down below the overpass or the tunnel, which really isn't seen from the street at all anyway.
We're all on a second. Okay, and that's.
Can you share your screen?
No, I was just looking on yeah, there's a section that the golf course owns, and that's really just from.
And
where
they're
the
enforcing
conservation-
against them too, when we may find that they rip that down and,
Okay,
They did
leave a big
against-
hole anyway.
Against you all, the golf course and.
And
Harmony
Omni.
Retail.
Omni,
Omni.
Omni is the new owner all the way out to the east.
Oh, okay.
Omni,
Okay.
OMNI,
Omni,
Omni.
got it.
Anyway,
So
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 if we
we're-
just take from the conservation area
to the east.
east,
so
all that down. And then as they're taking it down, there have been new pieces put in, any pieces that are in decent shape. Then if there's broken stuff on the other end, we can repair and then see where we go from there.
Do we know how many linear feet is in front of the houses?
I think there's only what, 2 houses?
no, okay, so, well, first of all,
And the other is all got a huge landscape buffer between the houses and the
yeah,
road.
so there's
Okay.
clay brick, but there's the overpass and there's a landscape buffer there. Then there's golf course, which has their own fence,
Mhm.
conservation area with no fence. Then there's the pond behind H2.
Right,
And so, yeah, there's a few houses there, but then when you get to the other side, H1, there are, several of the houses with the, the rear load. That are right along that fence, and again.
right. I mean, they
Better fit.
they have such a huge landscape buffer, you can't see through it, but I was thinking leaving it all in that area right now, since those are where the houses are. There are no houses in the other areas.
Right.
That face right on the condos and townhomes. The tunnel and the overpass keep them buffered.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
So we should probably inform Jason to stop repairing anything in those areas, so we're
Well,
not.
I'm hoping we will know right
Yeah.
now, one way or another.
Well, I was gonna ask.
Well, but if he's already started, I know he's already started having guys replace stuff, so
Right.
instead of. Having
Putting
them,
them up to take.
right, to take them down and then
That's
figure out
what
what's
I'm
new,
saying.
what's not.
We should know
But then if you. need to-
tonight.
So,
Well, that was just my suggestion on top of what you were talking about,
Oh,
like, if you
okay.
do that, then we need to inform him to stop, so that way. We're not having to chase down what pieces were replaced, then
Yeah.
it goes back out and move them down.
Now, the other question
Double-handed.
is, do we have approval of the consent order yet?
She sent me the final, I mean, it's,
Has it been to the board, the code enforcement board, and been approved? That's my question. I don't want to. I don't know that it matters if we make this decision tonight.
we mailed the original to Osceola County Code Enforcement attention Jennifer Nobles, that was mailed out on the 12th, per Lisa Smith at Osceola County's request. And no, we have not heard anything.
Is that my understanding from when we talked last, it has to go before the code enforcement board to see whether they'll even enter into it with us.
That's correct.
Okay, so we don't have the final.
Nope.
You know, they may at their next board meeting say, we're not gonna do this consent decree, we're gonna start fining you $250 a day.
Yes.
Yeah,
could,
they
but-
could, but that's not.
I wouldn't think they would. but-
Normally how the county operates, because then staff won't put that out.
Well, I don't know, they're pretty upset with us right now.
They are.
They
So
are
are,
extremely upset with us.
But
Are
the
they-
date is September 30th. She wanted to put that date specifically to give us
Time.
enough time so you weren't running up against a clock.
Yeah,
what is the shape of the fence in front of H2 and H1?
I'd say pretty good. I mean, you can pull up Google Maps and look at a street view.
it is
It's,
better.
good
I don't know
on
why
both
it's better. It was all put in at the same time, but it seems to be in a lot better shape than the remainder of it. The worst part seems to be the east end.
So
I don't know if it's a matter of sun shining. It's
Morning sun versus getting more sun than the west end.
Well,
So-
my question is also,
It's true.
okay, so also around the east entrance, I mean, there's the tower and then there's all it's not just a straight fence, there's, some extra columns and everything. We're not talking about doing anything with that, correct?
I don't know what you want to do with what.
Well, Scott, let's go with Scott.
does the CDD own that?
The CDD owns.
Yeah.
At least
What's
the,
the violation was specifically just our community, was it specific to the fence line out front or the entire?
This one was the fence.
For us.
For you guys, but she also walked some golf course stuff and violated them. She also walked some developer stuff and.
Violated them. And if you go in front of where the commercial buildings are, you'll see taped to the light post out there, a violation notice. They're also violating them for the overflowing dumpster and all sorts of things. So they basically have decided,
so, we own basically the frontage, so once it hits a column, it starts going back to the part that wraps around, that is Harmony Cove. So obviously, we don't want to do anything to that column that's on ours that kind of runs, across the fence. We don't want to do anything that would.
You can only do
affecting-
something on your property.
Right.
Well, but we could take that column and.
Oh, you could. for sure.
I'm saying we should, it's that, since that would, that the bulk of that. fence-
that's an entry
that-
feature.
Right, which is on their property, so we want to make sure that we're.
Yeah.
Carving out, if we're talking about removing pets, we're not doing anything that adversely affects the other landowners.
So are we then, do I understand that we're sort of playing around with the idea of removing all the fence that's not in front of houses and replacing the fence that is in front of houses, or waiting to replace, just removing the fence that's not in front of houses and waiting to replace the fence that's in front of houses until it degrades?
My thought for immediate action to avoid code enforcement, the penalty is to remove the violating section as part of that eastern portion, which is not in front of anyone's houses. That is derelict and would need to be removed, whether we replace it or not.
So that's from the conservation area east,
Yes,
all of our ownership.
with that carve out of not affecting the entry.
Right,
points.
that would be, yeah,
Right.
the entryway would stay.
Everything west, which is in front of homeowners and is in better shape, that's not a critical need right now. We don't need to pour money in that direction.
I would say if we already bought material and your colleagues working that, maybe if there's areas around people's homes that you could
Mhm.
fix instead of the fence line along. the line
That's,
too.
yeah, that's what we're saying. is hang on to
Redirect
the
your
material
energies.
And then.
Well, yeah,
Well,
I was gonna add to what Dan was saying is when we're taking down the conservation east, any recently replaced pieces or newly replaced pieces are saved, and
Save
then
'em.
we move them to the homeowner's side. All the new stuff that we just purchased, we start working from the homeowners, from the west entrance towards the end of the property line.
Yeah.
That will have more mileage out of that. And then as far as,
What is it? What did you say?
well, yeah, we get more use out of.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you said have to walk more miles. I'm like,
No,
we,
get more mile out of. No, anyways, as far as the straight line and making use of their deposit and everything, I don't know if. I mean, we need some fencing associated with the maintenance facility that we.
We have engaged them in pricing the maintenance facility, but that one's just, it's more up in the air because we don't know which
Right, but.
plan.
Is there a reason, if we're not immediately putting up new highway fencing? Right, I assume we're talking about doing the removal right now,
Mhm.
and that at least gives us time and other budgetary things we can figure out to decide if we, I mean, maybe no one cares and we just don't replace it, and it's one less maintenance thing that we have to.
Budget for.
Right. So in the meantime, if we're not immediately doing anything with the straight line. Deposit is there, but we do have this immediate maintenance facility and some amount of fencing around that. Just,
Yeah, so I can speak on the Buck Lake fence. Straight Line did send me an email back. Again, it wasn't an official proposal. The very rough architectural design I put together originally, I drew out a fence around it. They came back with the black vinyl privacy sliding wound through the black 6-foot fence. It was like $11,000 to install that. Without it, it was like, I believe it was 8, if I'm not mistaken. I can find that email and confirm that, but that was a straight line fence. Email, unofficial. Just here's the number.
So they may be amenable to applying a portion.
Yeah, he didn't
Yeah.
speak on that when I spoke to him today. He was more speaking on the PVC fence along 192, but I'm sure we could engage in that.
Yeah.
Conversation.
So do we have a motion on the PVC fence issue, frontage fence issue?
Do we need to vote to take down the existing fence from the conservation area east?
Oh, yes.
So moved.
Subject to
To,
somebody.
Approval by the county that we can do
confirming that
this.
We don't have to have it.
Yes.
and I will get that,
So-
so that needs to be part of your motion.
yeah, so subject to that, so subject to that approval. I would propose that we proceed with the removal of the Highway 192 fencing. Do we have a quoted amount for that?
Well, it should be within their discretionary money to
Oh, okay.
authorize the work.
If they honor the dollar per foot, yeah.
Then that would be.
They may
Trust
not.
me,
just because
again,
it's-
it may not cost much to take it down. Big blow might do
So
it.
you're going to remove fence along, is it 192
From the conservation area east
Only on CDD property.
on CDD, that's on CDD,
east CDD property?
with the exception of the east entry feature.
Yes.
And subject to,
Approval by the county.
Correct, got it.
So
Okay, so who did make that motion? Okay, Dan's taking credit for that motion. Do I got a second? Motion is second. Any further belaboring discussions? Hearing none? Go ahead.
real quick, I mean, we have what, 5 or 6 people if we, any audience comments, would we have to do anything? We have an audience. They've heard us discussing it. Is there any harm in just seeing if there's any?
Let me just ask this.
Yes.
Is there anybody in this room that insists that wants very much to keep the fence and is opposed to this?
That would be, that's my
Okay.
question. Yeah.
Okay, I don't see any hands. I don't want a lot of
in
discussion.
on Zoom.
Yep, I haven't heard anyone speak up. So.
Well, it
Okay.
doesn't matter because we can still build it again later.
No, you may not. Careful on that.
Theoretically, we could build it again
Okay.
later. We are not.
So-
We have a motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
I'll
Thank you,
inform
everyone.
Jason right now to stop any future repairs to that one.
It sounds great. Well, don't interrupt his graduation ceremony though.
I'm just grabbing my computer so I can see mine.
Am I on, wait, comment on something else while he's doing this?
A very quick one.
On this here, my house, with the $300,000 reserve that was in the budget already, my assessment will go up $64 next year. plus the extra 25 for the extra 50,000.
Okay.
So we're looking less than $100. My home is in the older section,
Mhm.
so might be a little, but my frontage isn't real big. I said I'm an ordinary person, but it's not as hateful as it seems when people look at the numbers that way.
All right. We're on staff reports.
Field
You're
manager
taking care of it.
report.
Jason is at his daughter's graduation, so Brett will be filling in for him.
Brett's wearing all the hats tonight.
Sure am. So, trying to figure out where our field report was. Jason sent it on the 8th. We sent it to Christie. I think that was where the hangup was, but we do have the field manager reports in there. I know there were some questions on grinding, that came up. Grinding slowed down a little bit in the month of April because we were clearing out the CD trailer and the containers and all that stuff. And they really put a lot of time and effort into that and moving into Ashley. So we'll see grinding pick back up. Brad has sent, Catherine requested his spray logs. He is keeping them, and a lot of stuff, like he sent me a note that if you see one date, like if it's just, I'm gonna pick a number 5/8/23, he probably worked in that specific area for the entire, he said he worked in that area for the entire week. So the only thing Catherine's asked back on is she'll see the product used and the labeled rates and all that stuff, which Brad's got all that. I'm sure you all want to talk about the splash pad in this update. No, we don't want to talk about that. There's there right now.
You figure it out.
Um,
That's what you do.
Oh, no,
We'll talk about the splash pad in a moment. Anything else before we do get to the splash?
no, unless you have it, we do have like the 20-foot pontoon boat right now. I think I mentioned it earlier. It's got a motor that's down. It's not a typical trolling motor. It's a transom mounted, steering control motor. It's not like a normal bow mounted trolling motor. So it's a little bit more expensive. We do have 3 proposals. They're all in the $3,600 to $3,900 range.
So it's below your 5,000.
Yep. So we've got that. I'll send those over to you. I believe you.
I think I got them all right.
I think I did send them. Yes. I think I put the note that I'd like to go with Amazon because they already have our tax exempt
Tax
stuff. Okay. I guess, is there any other questions you all have for me on this report?
No, the grinding, the 1/4 inch grinding, I've been noticing again as we go, it just, they keep wiggling and coming up. Do you need us, if we notice it, to go ahead and just give the staff a heads up at CD?
Sure, yeah, you can say, yeah, CD,
Okay.
you know, just same thing happens like at Celebration where we have the same similar situation, staff's on site. We get emails all the time, like, hey, there's a lip, it's a trip issue.
Yeah,
We can
so-
grind them and then you have, you know, we had some, like last meeting, that storm event that rolled through here.
Mhm.
Driving home I-4 was frightening.
Crazy.
But yeah, so you get some high wind events in here, you'll have those tree roots.
Yeah,
We'll pick them up
wiggle
again. So if you find one, just send it to CD maintenance.
So all the board members and all the public, if our criteria, if it's a 1/4 of an inch difference in height or
That's-
above, please let CDD maintenance know by sending us an email. And that way the staff can get it on their list and get it ground so that we don't have any trip and fall hazards out.
Are you talking sidewalk?
Right.
Confused.
Yes.
The sidewalk panels, you know, there are 4x4 foot panels.
Because I heard trees and.
Okay, the roots are pushing them up, so. Thank you so much. So please, anybody out there, let us know if you see them so we can get those taken care of. I know we have some walkers in here.
The
So,
only
anything?
last update I'll give you, I know we talked about it briefly earlier, the Polaris, so did put a new exhaust on. Spoke to Route 1, they're like, hey, everything's up and running. Jason brought it back here, ran it for 15-20 minutes. All of a sudden, like the dashboard starts flashing and beeping. Oil pressure issue. So we shut it down, got back in contact with Route 1. They're gonna take a look at it. It may be an oil pump, maybe. But my question kind of goes back to the same thing that we had with Kissimmee is you just had it there. You were running it, you made repair, like
Right, didn't they run it, test drive it?
they had it for a few weeks. So they were doing some work on it. I think it ended up being around $900 worth of work, $980 worth of work. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so. I don't know what to say. I mean, we reached out to Briggs. I think I shared my emails with Briggs, that
You still
every
haven't
month-
heard back from them at
Nothing.
all?
I didn't even hear back from when I started copying Brent Maynard from Polaris,
Give them one more try, and if it doesn't work, that we may
So.
have to look at new engine or scrapping it. At this point, I'd rather get rid of it, but
the only
get
other.
another electric.
The only other thing I'll add, during our budget process at another district that does have Maxi. We did discuss that eventually Maxi is going to phase out. It's just, it's an old system, it's an old software, it's an old program for irrigation. I do have some rough numbers, not necessarily for Harmony, and I'm still putting those together with the number of controllers and everything else that you don't necessarily have to go back in with Maxi or a system like a central computer system.
Mhm.
There is newer technology out there. When I have that, I will provide it. I think it's more for future budget purposes, but you need to see the number for probably next year's budget, so you can start thinking reserves, because it's going away.
Yeah,
Like, we
it's dying.
piggybacked on Disney's order to buy some new clocks, because they're very far and few in between now. So, it's coming. It's coming.
Now, being distributed, it's something that can be phased in somewhat gradually, like as it fails, it can.
Yeah, you could. It is, the numbers that I have are from a different manufacturer. So
Okay.
Maxi's Rainbird, the numbers I have are from Hunter, which is another very reputable irrigation vendor from the golf course side all the way to down to residential.
Do you even have a ballpark?
You give me another 15 minutes, I can chime in again and say, here's about what it's gonna
Okay.
cost.
When we're finished with you here, we'll let you do that. Just in case we need to adjust anything.
That was all I really had on an update for you guys.
All right, then we're
Splash pad.
moving to the splash pad. Again, as everyone knows, when PFS came in and did some work, the pipe was cracked, we had a leak, it flooded and destroyed our VFD, which I looked back in Avid, and PFS had replaced that in 2020. So it was a fairly new VFD panel. I thought it was the original one, and it destroyed our brand new pump motor. So they have a proposal for us now to replace both the VFD panel and the pump motor, and then to do the programming necessary to get it up and running. And they're doing piping.
And fix the pipe, yeah.
They're fixing all the exposed pipes in the vault. Is that
Correct, yes.
what
Thank you
I'm
for
understanding?
clarifying that.
And that is a proposal for $11,793. So we've already spent what, 23,000 on it.
Yeah, there's a cost analysis in there, I was asked that if we just want it to be more of a,
Static bounce.
static fountain where there is no variations of flow and different heights on nozzles, et cetera, what that would be. And basically you still have to have a VFD. It's taken from 3-phase to 2-phase to the motor. That VFD will help with that. But the programming for the VFD to run that system is about $2,000. So you would see a $2,000 savings to not see it pop up and down and dance and.
Yeah, but that's what makes it fun for only
Right.
$2,000 more.
Yeah, I mean, if it was $10,000, that might
Yeah.
be something. 2,000.
So, so we have these proposals from PFS for $11,793.34.
That's correct.
Right. They didn't provide a second one because it was basically, if you don't want, just take off
$2,000 less, right? So, that means since we approved the contract, we can just approve this as a work order?
work authorization.
Work authorization. We'll still fill out the paperwork, so.
I move that we approve estimate $1,790 for $11,793.34 for PFS to repipe new motor and gaskets, new VFD and program for the VFD. as a work authorization.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I have a question.
Well, after we get a second.
We need a second, at least
I'll
for
second.
discussion
I'll
purposes.
second.
Okay,
Okay, now,
so I have a, now,
Oh,
discussion.
uh,
Sorry, yeah.
No, but the motor, we have brand new motor, what, 915 we put in 2022?
Mhm.
Do we not have a warranty or anything on that?
It would be an
It's not
act
gonna
of
be-
God.
Well, yeah, not when it's
Well,
flooded with
we-
water.
Right, well,
in a pump, you swear to be waterproof. You're messing with the whole.
well, there's the electric, I mean, we, just to go over the sequence, I mean, we had the impeller rebuilt on it. right?
That
No.
entire.
We
that
got a
entire
brand
motor
new
replaced.
pump.
Okay,
It's a motor, not the pump.
I thought, no, but we got an entire new pump from Speeds.
No, the pump is when you look in the vault, it's to the, it looks like a pool pump. It's got a little clear filter screen on it. That's the pump. The motor is.
So
brand
the
new.
900 and something was just the motor from Speeds
9,000.
or 9,000?
Yeah, that's just the motor.
Just the motor? I thought it was a whole specialized pump that had to be a certain
it's a-
size to
it's-
fit in
Yeah,
the
it's about
vault. and-
this big and there's different gaskets on it. It's got a hook up to the pipe.
Okay, and
But
now
that's just
they're
the
able
motor
to
that-
replace that whole thing for, so we overpaid Speeds $5,000.
Sounds like it.
And we've had to pay, remember they could get it, they were the only ones.
Right.
who could
Yeah.
get it.
months.
Get it.
They're in cahoots with Polaris.
Thing.
I'm really tired of vendors.
so we have a motion and a second. We have discussion.
Right, any other further?
No, I just
discussion?
thought that.
Just-
I mean,
yeah, it's
only-
painful.
less than a year old,
So,
Now, the question is, I'm sorry, are they gonna elevate these things higher when they put them in again, or can they?
I can,
Section which automatically.
it didn't matter with the automatic shut off. It was still electrical that got exposed and.
Well, the problem is you could have a float valve so that when the water comes up, automatically shuts off, but if it's a break in the line, what's it gonna shut off?
I can ask, I don't know how they do that stuff. I mean, my suggestion is we probably need to put multiple bilge pumps in there, not just one. So that we have multiple, like if one fails, you have another one still going. Would be probably number
Well,
one.
let's do whatever's necessary to protect those expensive items.
The other thing that I will tell you, when I sent the contract over. She thought it was the approval for this repair, so she's actually already ordered the pump or the motor, so. She said no big deal, she wasn't gonna charge us for it, but that's good because now.
It'll be quicker.
so
Okay,
my question is before we vote, I mean, what's left? Is there anything that we could see? in original
Anything else?
equipment In, or
in fathomably go wrong.
The only thing that's remaining, and this is where you would get into that big number that Angel was talking about, the $300,000, is the pipes that are underground that go to the physical splash
right,
pad.
the actual layout of the,
And the pad and everything where it comes out. That is. I have no idea, right? I mean, it's underground, we can't see it. But internally, no, there wouldn't be anything else. And again, the other stuff that's in there, when you go look at it, it does look like the pump that's in there is just basically a pool pump, right? It's got a filter screen on it and that helps. If that low pressures, it'll shut down, but that's only because like a pool, when it clogs up,
Right.
it's gonna shut the pump down, but
which anyone that's not aware, it is legally it's a pool.
yeah, it gets
You know,
inspected
pH
and
and everything.
all that
Okay.
stuff.
Did you have it? Were you able to visit with them and discuss the possible deterioration rate of the pipes under the ground?
No, I didn't ask that. I don't know. if they-
So
Okay.
I guess I would say,
Yeah.
is there any point while it's being repiped into vaults of borescoping to? I mean, we're spending the money, we're repairing,
I can ask.
there's no harm in asking, I guess. Incurring additional expense, but if there's a good opportunity to make sure that everything that's left is at least in decent shape, or if there's
You
anything.
could do an endoscopy on it.
that we do.
Really, they should be able to send a little thing with the flashlight.
I will ask, tonight, when I get done with my section, I have a chance to shoot.
Well, one other question. You do other CDDs, is it possible that we could find another CDD that's had a similar problem and talk to them?
There's not a lot of CDDs with splash pads.
For HOAs or?
I mean, and the splash pads they have are attached, they're like kiddie pools next to like what we have. They're
Oh.
like the kiddie play area where they.
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
The
all
dumping
right.
buckets.
Yeah, I mean, our Celebration has a splash pad. But we're using, they haven't had issues. They're currently in their budget talking about spending $300,000. That's what Angel mentioned today.
Yeah.
To redo the whole thing. So,
Oh,
and we're not having failure, it's just,
right, right.
It's that time.
It's just getting frustrating and we don't want to do this and have something else pop up next week.
Churchill Pools does their maintenance contract and we're not happy. We're probably gonna get rid of them.
Well, that was my next question, assuming things is going forward, if we get it up and running.
Well,
That's
that'll
the
be the
stuff
next
we're
one. Let's do this.
All right.
Any further discussion on this proposal? Hearing none, I'll call a question. All in favor? Aye.
Bye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. That is for $11,793 and
So voice.
how many cents?
I'm not on the page anymore, but there is also
It's
another
the agenda.
proposal
Yes,
It
for
was in my
quarterly
motion.
maintenance.
for quarterly maintenance that is not on the agenda really, so do we want to?
It is in the agenda.
Well, it's in the package.
It's in the
not,
package.
makes
Well,
the
it's part of the
agenda.
splash pad update and options.
So, yes, and I'll speak on that real quick. I did ask PFS to provide this because kind of like our heater situation, I've explained this to like talk to Teresa, like we have CPOs on staff. I have one, Angel has one, Jason has one. The CPOs are really kind of like, hey, we're making sure the pH and the chemical levels in the water are great. It's not, doesn't mean we have the mechanic IQ to go in and say, here's what we need to do with this pump, and here's how you adjust that. It is pressure and a lot of that stuff's driven that way. But we don't, that's not what we specialize in. We don't specialize in the hydraulics and the pumping. So
So you're
Quarterly
proposing that we-
maintenance, what is it going to include? Did they tell you?
It's right here.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Clean the vault, clean the strainers, clean the filtration system,
Okay,
check
great.
all electrical, VFD voltage, pumps, motors, unclog nozzles.
Okay,
And
so
$1,200 to do that.
for each quarter.
I mean, each time they do that list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
We would probably put that into a contract and then,
Well, we already have a contract.
That's part of work authorization, yeah.
sure, we could do that too.
Yeah.
I was thinking more,
I think Lucas needs to do that.
Now, do they? There was something that had to be done almost monthly here, the changing of some sort of valves or gaskets, or was that
they were
a
the
big
solenoid filters, which
filters? Just pull them out and clean them and that?
PFS did not say anything about that.
Okay.
They made it sound like, and I will say the solenoids that they used. We had 3/4 inch solenoids in there, they went to 1.25 inches, so,
Okay, so that shouldn't be an issue,
yeah, he didn't.
but
that
they'll
would
be,
be
but
part
that
of-
will be part of the maintenance.
Should be.
Okay,
And then field services goes and checks the pH in the water every day.
Absolutely, we have to.
Oh, yeah.
But I know, probably not, Brett, but it would be nice if this maintenance would provide some warranty against the splash pad, if something broke and maybe give us, I don't know, some kind of discount or a warranty with the motor, or, I mean, if we're paying, almost $5,000 a year, which is going to bump up our overall budget every year. It's nice to have some.
I can ask with the warranty information. I think I did ask PFS and I think they had mentioned on the repiping, it was a 1 year. Labor, I'll get all that information and I'll email you all.
Our reserve study had ongoing maintenance for a splash pad estimated about, $2K for starting, escalating over time. But every 3 years, so this would be a bit of a step up from that, but. Same time, we want to protect our investment.
okay, so do we want to do anything tonight on this or wait until we get response back from Brett as
I'd
far
like
as
to hear
warranty?
Or any kind of,
If you approve the proposal for PFF,
Mhm.
you should absolutely approve the maintenance.
I was gonna say, yeah, would be
The other way.
penny wise and pound foolish.
Move
not
to
to-
approve estimate 1792 from PFS for $4,800 for quarterly maintenance for architectural fountain, for quarterly inspections at $1,200 each.
For 1 year. I think that was for 1 year.
4,800 for 1 year, quarterly inspections and maintenance. Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion before we vote? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
We're gonna keep her.
Joe. Anything else?
No, ma'am.
You are released to go do your figuring. All right, we have Mr. District Engineer to talk about a community maintenance facility.
So based on last meeting, you had asked us to look at a site plan layout for track D, which is the next to the entrance road to the golf course maintenance facility. We did two versions. I'm not sure if Dan you'll be able to pull them up, but one version is access off the golf course maintenance road. And the second access is off of 5 Oaks. We were then also asked recently to go ahead and do a conceptual cost estimate for the lakefront location versus the track D location. So those are provided in your emails, I believe, from this afternoon. The lakefront maintenance facility was roughly $90,000 with a 15% contingency. And the 5 Oaks Drive Community Maintenance Facility was roughly $350,000 with a 10% contingency. And there's two variations of the site plan.
Bringing up.
Yep. And of course, as you realize, the reason you collectively chose the second location was potential opposition of the proposed location at lakefront. And so this one would be a building with an office, unlike the one at lakefront, correct, Brad, if I'm wrong? The new track D would be with an office in the building, where the lakefront did not have an office.
There was no.
Okay.
The difference was the restroom. Because Buck Lake has a restroom
Mhm.
real close, but there is a restroom cost involved with 5 Oaks.
So, and then really the difference is whether you're entering off the golf maintenance road or off of 5 Oaks.
Yeah, I can't tell you sitting here, Dan, if the county will allow two entrances that close to each other. They usually have a minimum distance, but you at least have an idea how Greg was able to squeeze in the building, the parking, the access to the lean shed area, on the stormwater pond, setbacks and things like that. So
Yeah.
it's shoehorned in there, but it works. So.
Yeah, we have to check with the telephone easement to make sure there wasn't any interference there. But when we went by the other day, Angel and I were out doing site work or site visits. Closer to not only the county's concerned, but when you get closer to the golf maintenance, there's a light pole in between the trees that blocks one possible entrance, and there's a culvert, stormwater culvert, and the other one that would prevent the entrance from being in either of those two locations. So it would have to shift all the way to the far end of the triangle.
And for anybody who wants to see a blown up version, it's on the kitchen countertop behind Carol and Teresa. There's a 2 foot by 3 foot plot of each site plan, so.
And what is this dotted line?
That's the proposed piping, take the water from the paved surfaces to the pond.
I see.
That would be a dry retention pond.
Hopefully, yeah, we don't have any borings yet to know whether or not the groundwater will allow us, but we're hoping it's shallow enough we can get away with the dry pond.
But none of this conceptual work was really done on the lakefront, so we don't know what obligations we might have there expense wise in order to do.
No.
Yeah, it was online for sure. I saw it.
Which was the filing for that? I mean, I see.
It was
Yeah, The thing is, the lakefront has pre-existing
Yeah,
parking.
the reason we have more detail on the track D is we were fortunate enough to have a survey done by others, by your prior surveyor. So that allowed Greg to have more control on the boundary, the topography, the contours. We had a lot more information there for him to do more detailed site plan. The one he did for the lakefront was based on an aerial map and just kind of dropping things in conceptually, so.
Yeah, you had some LiDAR elevations. and That's what he said. to
Correct.
me. But the difference is that the structure is going in over a currently existing in lakefront. Structures going in over currently existing impervious surface. And we're not adding any new impervious surface because we already have the parking and everything right there. So we wouldn't have to do any stormwater work, anything of that sort.
Are we sure about that?
Well, I don't know the condition of the pavements. If you do any form of reconstruction, you will need a pond. So I don't know how good of condition the base and sub base is, but if you just use the existing impervious area, we will not have to retrofit the site. But if we do get into the base and reconstruct it, they will make you bring it to current standards.
It sounds like there'd have to be something unless there's. That parking area goes off to the side, but there's not really a good way to secure that and, have, secure storage. So
What?
it
I'm
sounds
sorry.
like- Wouldn't we still have to add some kind of impervious, whether it's for the lean-to, any kind of access?
No, right now, there's a 45 by 25 slab down there.
Yes. And there's a walkway going to that.
Mhm,
Um,
from the parking lot.
yes, so the impervious surface is already there, the parking lot that goes off toward, off to the east there. Does that meet all the needs or is, we? talked
Yeah,
about
that would
having-
meet all the parking requirements. I think you've got about 10 spots there.
Right, but then we talked about having, a lean-to, some kind of outdoor storage in addition to the building. Are we saying that all fits on that 45 by 25 pad?
Yes, that's the way it was designed.
Yeah, it's gonna be a different shape building than what you're looking at there.
Right, well, it's 45 by 45 when we're going in here.
There was more room for a building. I mean, we can shrink that building down.
Right.
If we need to.
Well, that's, that's just my question. So I'm not expecting that would have much of a material cost if we made the track D building a little smaller to match.
It's not.
Right, so my question is. That smaller footprint for the building, lean to everything else. Would that be sufficient at the VC1 location? Or are we not really doing a fair comparison because there would have to be some additional approach, paving or anything like that with potential drainage impacts that would potentially drive that cost up higher?
That's what I was asking before.
Well, I think David, I'm not gonna speak to David, you heard, I don't know if there's some different mic, but David, the track that's on the screen, if you recall a while back, that's where we were looking to put the dog park.
Yes.
So David had some historical site plans, is that the right word, David?
A detailed survey.
Detailed surveys, there we go, I'm not an engineer. Of this area, so he was able to give you a more in-depth site plan, site development costs, et cetera, on this location than we have on the Buck Lake location.
Yeah.
The building size, again, I can shrink it down here, I can make it bigger at Buck Lake to get apples, but the cost for the building in the cost comparisons or the engineered cost estimates that David gave you are actually quotes from the same vendor,
Yes.
just different building sizes.
Right,
So you
yeah.
could interchange those numbers.
Well, I get that. The question is, the 45 by 20, we're saying, the basis of comparison is for the 45 by 25 pad that's already out there on VC1, that we could fit everything we need to on that and therefore wouldn't need any more, drainage or something. I don't know.
That's,
I don't know.
well, we were out there and we actually brought the carts out there. This was 2 months ago. And we parked the carts there, we analyzed it and said that yes, that surface would be sufficient.
But
But I think what you're saying is what additional, like drainage and do we need?
Well,
No.
if what we're saying that's sufficient, is that including a lean-to?
Right.
So how do we get to that lean-to? Is there's just a little walkway there? Are we okay with that, or is there?
Yeah, you would come off that gravel road there and there would probably be some additional costs. Over time, like for the time being.
Well,
I'm
we
gonna-
drive through the grass all the time, right?
Yeah, I'm just gonna point out part of my reach.
Yeah,
What we had talked about.
Cursor around.
I guess.
Yeah, so yes, yeah.
We had talked about fencing. We had talked about fencing off, from this front corner of the building right here, straight out, and then coming up and then back, so we had some depth behind the building, and more than likely the roll door would be on the back side. And if the lean-to, it would be more of an L-shaped building that's actually gonna have inside storage, the lean-to is gonna be much smaller. But it would be here, and then the fence would continue up and then out this way, and we probably have a double gate right here.
you see,
So that
you
vehicles.
say, right, we're not.
Oh, yeah, he's showing it on the screen here, sorry.
But I'm looking at the screen and I'm not
Oh,
seeing. it.
No, but he can't.
It's a road, yeah.
He's just pointing it out for Dan.
Here, let me come up here to it.
Yep.
It'll be easier.
I'm gonna make the cursor bigger, sorry.
But the mail version. So what I was saying is here would be the fence, we'd run it from the front of the building, notice isn't putting it any further in front of it, because it's where the door to the office would be. Fence would come out, down and around it a little deeper, because we want to have the ability, the roll door would be on the back side, not the front side. So it's secured behind the gate as well.
But there's. The land dips down there and then you're just driving on
No,
grass. Is the
it
county
doesn't.
even Gonna
There you
allow
go.
that.
It doesn't dip down
Not
until
right here,
quite a
but
ways over. See where the
probably a little
fenced
far
area is to the
and then
top?
a little deeper this way, but anyways. The roll door would be back here, the lean-to side would be over here. On the back side, so that way there would be a double gate on this side where they would be able to drive in their mules. And then the truck, if they needed to get a trailer, would store the trailer back here. Roll door would be here, lean-to in this area here.
And the trailers would be under the lean-to, right?
They may be some of the smaller ones, yes, the larger one probably would be stored inside.
You're gonna gravel that or pave it?
We would probably have to gravel this over time.
But right now,
It's just.
Yeah.
Well, we're out
It's-
there.
it's just sod that they run across.
Well, and
All
that's
the
my
time.
question. Would we be allowed to build like that, or does it make? In your engineering judgment, sense to build like that, or do we need to look at some other kind of site prep in addition to? What's already there to make that usable and. You know, and. Be practical and useful,
So we go in this area.
because I mean.
It can either go in those two, the most cost-effective place would be in the two parking spaces right there with a fence around it, so you wouldn't even see it. The other option is to put it off to the end of the parking lot. However, that's more movement for the garbage trucks and it's additional cost because you have to put a pad there for it.
What do we need a dumpster for?
For all the garbage bags from the garbage receptacles,
All
the
the
doggy
boxes.
stations.
Well, couldn't we put that out on that other piece of property?
We can't run that truck down there. That ruins the road.
No, I meant on that corner.
Okay, I mean, my thoughts, so looking at the numbers, I'll put them on screen here, so. What we were saying with those assumptions about using the lakefront site and saying that there's no. Paving, grading, or anything else would still come to 88,400 versus for either similar cost for the two site D or track D. Would be 346. So, we're looking at just over 4 times difference. What I want to make sure with my questions is that we're not, that there wouldn't be any other site prep, grading, anything else that would, drive up that lakefront cost number, since we have the, just the.
Yeah, I mean, Dan, to answer your question, this is soup to nuts.
Yes,
Got a virgin site, nothing on it, to build a whole new facility, parking, building, utilities, everything, landscaping, that is soup to
Right.
nuts. I can't tell you sitting here if unintended consequences are gonna pop up for lakefronts.
Right. I mean, and so the rest of the board knows, I mean, this would be my preference that we, I mean, this, we heard plenty of feedback from residents that, there's, lots of arguments against having it, near the park and near the lake and everything. I'm just trying to make sure we're, clear-eyed as possible about all the costs, comparison between
And
the two sites.
It's also not apples to apples
Right.
because the,
There's too many, I think there's enough unknowns with the lakefront site just on what additional costs there could be to make that fully usable.
but it's not apples to apples because the site that, the plan for, the track D is a much bigger facility. It's almost twice as big as,
Yes, but that was a question I had earlier, that if we were to skinny this building here to make it just 45 by 25, that's not going to have a huge impact on the overall cost.
There's $12,000 worth of trees on the, I don't think we need trees. I mean, it's part of landscape.
Well,
but we really need trees put in.
The
the county may require that.
the county on a whole new development site. They have certain landscape standards you have to meet. At the lakefront, we already have the trees that are right there and the shrub hedge. That's screening the part that faces the parking lot. We'd still have to add some additional, either a privacy fence or some shrubs that go around the other side of the fencing, so that would be required. I'm not too sure, again, if we're just pretty much just bringing in the fencing contractor and the metal building constructor, how much of some of the other costs that we'll face. There is already a concrete sidewalk out there to the site. So we'd lose that cost, and the dumpster pad if we put it right there. So the dollars and cents speak to me as well as the closeness to the facilities that we maintain.
So, but the dumpster doesn't have to be at the community maintenance facility.
They're
The
gonna be using
dumpster-
it all the time.
But they're out and about gathering the trash, and so if the dumpster was at the Lakeshore Park and the building was at the other one, so I'm not sure that the dumpster needs to be.
Building at why would we put a dumpster at the lake shore and
To save money. I mean,
that wouldn't save an appreciable amount. on
well,
the
I'm just saying though,
Sure.
there's some things in here that maybe don't have to be there. But my biggest beef with the Lakeshore
we
one is I think it should have a bathroom. I can't believe we're gonna expect these guys to. It could be a thunderstorm and they need to use the restroom now. They got.
That's
school load.
usually, really, to be truthful, they won't be using the bathroom in the facility. The county will make us put it in. But right now, the
No, I mean
guys,
at the Lakeshore, that we're talking about doing it without a bathroom.
right, but I'm saying even in the other one. Our staff is typically out and are using the restrooms
Right.
at the lakefront. Or at the pool,
Yeah.
or at other locations, very seldom. In fact, they used it so rarely at the staff trailer, they didn't know that there was a need to pump out the holding tank, so.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't think the restroom is that critical, but for the fact that you're gonna absolutely have to put a restroom facility, the county's gonna require it
right.
in the dog park location.
Well, this is a dilemma, but I look on it.
Did Dan say that the proposed building by the dog park would be larger
Yes,
than what the other would be? But so looking down the road, because you have a lot of equipment down at the garden that's out in the weather and being destroyed. Would it not, I know it's gonna cost more, but wouldn't it be financially more feasible to put the Balaki building, so you put all your equipment in it,
But,
pay the piper
Okay.
now rather than. have
but
it
that's
outside.
the stuff that's sitting out now that's going to go under the lean-to.
But will it fit in the smaller building rather than the larger?
It will fit in under the lean-to area. There would be one trailer that would go inside and the others would be under the lean-to.
Or would it be better?
So it would be covered.
Then you have room for the pesticides and the fertilizers and everything else that's going to be kept outside.
Right, yeah, we'd have lock boxes there.
Safety issues, safety issues when you're coming in, playing here with the traffic and children going to the park.
Again, that's totally on the other side where the children aren't.
I've
going
never
anyway.
seen,
I've never seen kids over in that
I've
area.
never seen anybody over there.
Hmm.
It's kind of a wasteland. What do you see children doing over there?
Riding their bikes to get to the park, riding their bikes to go to the lake.
He lives across the street.
Yeah, I've,
Girl,
yeah, that gravel parking lot and that
That's
concrete
right.
bed, they
that's right.
ride their bikes in
That's
there.
right, they do.
If you riding right past it, it's fenced in. They wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
get into the
Yeah.
area.
Yeah,
You're still destroying the park.
well, we don't have a
Okay,
lot of options.
I need
so-
to bring it back to the board. We're running.
Sorry.
Well,
seriously late on
I'm
time.
in favor of biting the bullet and doing it at on Five Oaks. Harmony is an elegant, not elegant, that's not the word I want, but it's a nice community. And I think sometimes we have to bite the bullet and do it, but I know that
Then
whenever,
we need to revisit our budget.
well, no, that's, let me finish.
Okay,
But
I'm
I
just-
know that our heads are gonna roll if we do that, which I think is the right thing. Therefore, I think we have no choice but to do Lake Shore. With the caveat, if we come into a lot of money someday,
we can move it.
we could move it. Right.
And if we move it, then we're not losing any significant money.
Right, right.
And because it's a metal building, it can be expanded.
Uh,
And then if we came in to the money that we would need to do this plan, then it would still be feasible. We wouldn't have lost a lot because we're not doing much at the lake.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not, I think there are too many unknowns with the other site prep work and what might be required.
But that's why we need to go into the county and start the discussion. So again, we need
We
to
need
go
to do
back
that
and
first.
revisit our budget if we're gonna go for the dog park one.
Well, yeah, that, I mean. Cause that was 4 times more. And not to mention the amount of time it's gonna take. Let's get, what do you think, Lucas?
I don't like the park location. at all.
Yeah,
I think it's a very financial, easy decision to make, but I'm not. I think it's going to be a big sore thumb and people are not going to get it all.
Have you seen the location? You can't even see it from the parking lot or the street.
Yeah, you can't see.
See, so the issue is though, like, this parking area is for the residents and we're giving it to maintenance folks.
Mm-mm.
You're adding a
The-
whole nother parking area?
The parking area was
No.
when they had the charter school, it was, portables there, so that's what.
And
they built.
nobody
I
really
suppose-
ever uses it.
I've been to the pavilion where we have birthday parties.
Yeah, but they're
I'm
not
sure.
they're not using that parking. So when you go in, that parking lot's on the left. Everything that they're proposing is on the right.
I understand that. but
And
you have overflow parking.
On weekends, there will be 2 cars there.
yeah, they're-
Okay, well, you ever had the food trucks down there at the park and everyone comes and parks there when you got the maintenance facility people going in and out? Let me get back.
They leave at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, okay, you're thinking that, but I'm telling you right now, it's gonna be a sore thumb. And it's not gonna look good for Harvey.
so these parties that you're talking about, they take place during the day when the maintenance guys will be there?
Weekends, weekdays, I mean, yeah, summertime, yeah. everyone's-
Yeah, see, I've been coming here since 2008. I've never seen a living soul there, but,
Well, you haven't been-
Well, yeah,
yeah.
You can't see-
Second purchase parties there.
You can't see, you can't
Guys,
cross talking.
Dan is gonna,
So like I say, you can't see from, and I put a lot of thought in this, so yeah, from the road, you cannot see the pad, because there's a drop down to the parking lot, and then there's another drop down to basically the level of the wetland where this pad is. Put a 12-foot building on there, yes, you'll be able to see it, but, so then are we putting, how much landscape do we need to add to offset that? I mean, there are. I made my thoughts clear on this, I understand it's a bigger cost,
Yeah,
I think there's, but between the resident impact of every time someone walks out to, Buck Lake to use our boats, one of our facilities, they have to go right by our maintenance, and the unknowns of what kind of other site prep we might need that we just don't know because we don't have the full, detailed survey like we do on track D. That's, I think there are too many bad sides to that outcome. So
Okay,
that's why. I think-
this is something we absolutely have to get a move on, or we're gonna be paying $250 a day in violation, and we're still waiting to hear from the, May 10th inspection?
Yes, I've emailed this, but I haven't heard anything back.
So I think
So
that.
with that option, you gotta redo your budget.
Yes.
Okay, well, I think we need to move forward with the county, but figure out what kind of. My choices for the track D, if we. The action with county then would be to, figure out what kind of, access we can do. Given, the existing maintenance road, existing
Now-
drainage trees.
Right, we have showing coming off of the maintenance road. Do we have an easement over that, David, or? I'm not sure why we were coming off the maintenance road. That's a
That is
private
private,
owned
yeah.
driveway.
Because I don't know if the county's gonna allow two driveways that close, so.
But
Plus,
we
I
don't
thought
know
for
if
a
they
maintenance
were-
facility, you wouldn't want the guys in and out of Five Oaks. I'm just trying to make it a less obtrusive.
and
The
I
trees in front of
understand
it.
that, but we don't have any ownership or right to be on the driveway.
Well, I just assume y'all can work it out with the entity, but I mean, the cost between the two different alternatives are gonna be it's gonna be the same roughly. Listen, there may be a little bit more expensive to go off of Five Oaks. But
So David, do you think there's like extra fluff in here that we could take out as both? I mean, we got like 30 trees, hedge plants, stuff like that.
it's conceptual, so by all means, we tend to go higher than lower.
Right.
We can go with a different type of surface versus the asphalt. We don't have to have a concrete driveway. We can have, so yeah, there's ways to put it on a diet.
Okay. I mean, it's a maintenance facility. It doesn't have to be a bougie, bed and breakfast, right? I mean, come on, it's gonna get. But yeah, I mean, if we're gonna make this work, obviously it's way too high for us.
But the problem is your budget, we have to have it in by the June 15th.
Mhm.
And you need to put in the absolute highest.
Well, the problem we have more than that is that we have to build this in this budget year.
Mhm. But you're gonna have
And
to
we-
pay, I mean, you don't have.
So we
you don't
have
funds.
$180,000. Well, we don't even have that much considering we're gonna take the splash pad out of the reserves now, so we had. What, $160,000 there. We have just about 200 in unassigned cash, and that's all we've got.
That's correct.
what part are we in violation with the county at this point?
We have storage containers.
The ones we're gonna sell? Well, we don't need to build the building to get rid of those, right?
Yes, you've got to, where else are you,
I thought you were selling them.
but we have all the stuff in them. that-
Oh, yeah.
So-
I thought they were sitting there empty.
No, I wish they were, we wouldn't be having this.
Well, I
discussion.
volunteer my garage.
Well, that's the other thing.
I mean,
I mean,
temporarily, you know.
But, and she got, I said, well, for 300 and some odd thousand, we could buy a house with a 2-car garage and have office space and
With a bathroom.
conference space
With the bathroom.
and several bathrooms. But I say that tongue in cheek, but not so. We don't, if we are going to this expense, we could really look at that because a community maintenance facility can go in any of the classifications except conservation area. So we
But
could do that.
I don't think the neighborhood would
I don't think
appreciate
it
it.
would be
Okay.
great, but
May
It would be
I
quicker.
pipe in?
Yeah.
sure, we'd love it.
Thank you. I think the costs for the lakefront are an underestimate, as Dan said. You know, I think there's lots of unknowns there that an actual site plan would uncover. And so I think it's probably going to be at least 50 to 75% more expensive than that, because the county's going to require, you know, there may be a slab there, but in order to put a building there, et cetera, and have this facility, the county's going to require, I think, a lot more than is there. And I think that the cost for the track D estimate is more than we need to spend. And I also am, you know, I would much rather see the facility on Five Oaks than I would down at the lake. So maybe what we do is we find out what the county would require at the lakefront, while we also move ahead with seeing how we can reduce some costs while still, you know, being within county requirements and having it be a decent facility.
Well, talking to the county, there's questions we need answered for the Five Oaks site as well.
For a long,
The access
So should
and
we,
its telephone use.
isn't there a no cost preliminary? What do they call it, David? A pre, yeah.
You gotta have an idea of.
So you could take both of these in and sit down with the county and say, here's what we've got on these two parcels.
I mean, we talked about that last, I tabled that meeting until we cranked out the two alternatives for track D, but yeah, we could bring all of them to them next. And,
Now, I would not do the one coming off of the driveway into the golf, because they're planning on selling, or they talked about selling that. We've had problems with the private owners before. I just wouldn't want to be beholden to anybody.
that's fine.
I would stay away
Perfect
from
world if
that.
they would sell that to us.
We talked about that, like I said, I told them to call us before they did anything, but again, the price tag on that's gonna be phenomenal. But maybe we can use a corner of it and
Current assessed
take out
value
the rest.
513.
The
The current assessed value on the county's website is 513. Those numbers are pressed.
It's seriously depressing, so. $1 million or so.
Yeah, but we could have a party room and a meeting room and charge people a bunch of money.
RV lot access.
So anyway, is that reasonable to have David go forward and meet with the county and find out what these questionable things on the lakefront might end up being? Because we don't want to go into it blind and not know all the costs. And also if we can even come off of Five Oaks into this part.
Well, when the building was there, what did they have to do
Building
at the
was where?
lakefront?
Nothing.
Portable classrooms?
Oh, they had 8 or 10 of them or 12 of
Yeah, I
them,
didn't
or-
see those,
Yeah,
but
but it was temporary.
I just remember that when the library trailer was there.
They were up, they weren't down at that lower level.
No, we have 4 of them down on the, we'll go on the way back.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I've seen some
You-
pictures of it, yeah.
There were, in fact, that's why that pad is out there. That was their big central
Okay.
courtyard area. Around, and there were 4 or 5 of them around there.
Running out of candy over there.
I used to take my grandkids to the story hour in the
So,
library.
Does that make sense, David?
Well, I was gonna ask Angela a question, so. They say we show the county, we have an eyesight plan. I mean, it's got a lot of detail. If we show that to them as a concerted effort, we're moving forward with an alternate site. Would they relax? Would they relax at $250 a day? Because we are, I mean, you're spending the money on us and do site plans and all this other stuff. It would show good faith that we are taking this seriously. Bless you.
Bless you.
But I'm thinking if we can kick the can down the road enough that you can straddle fiscal years and then this becomes a discussion for 23, 24, bless you.
We have in other districts.
My goodness.
We have done in other districts, as long as we're showing some sort of plan, that we have a plan of action, we are actually doing it, not kicking it down the road. We haven't seen any issues with stretching it, like starting stuff this fiscal year and then, you know, finishing the rest of the next fiscal year, so you're going across both to finance it.
Except for the fence.
Yeah. Fence is already, that's.
I understand.
Yeah, really.
But this building, absolutely, it's definitely worth a try.
And the easement question you all asked, David, is, you know, the going over that private land there, if it's within the district boundaries, we can get an easement, it's just be a question of cost.
Exactly.
You're gonna negotiate with it, or you can take it by eminent domain for.
Ooh, eminent domain.
Well, eminent domain is not all you guys think. Alex.
Yeah.
Really?
It can be expensive to do that, but oftentimes you can negotiate with the landowner and, you know, under the threat of eminent domain, they get some tax consequences if you do that if you have to buy it. But hopefully you can collaboratively work that out, but you absolutely have the ability to get an easement if you need it. Just a question of cost.
So I would say we want to consider that maybe a fallback if there's no good way to come in off of Five Oaks, whether it's. the
Yeah,
county
because
or
we-
whatever.
You weren't here, Mike, but we have had a nightmare with the private developers and private landowners. It's been a money sink that doesn't quit.
That's fine. I just wanted you to know that you can legally get it. It's gonna be a question of cost and process.
All right, I'll schedule them at the county, at the TRC or DRC, whatever they call themselves, and present track D off of Five Oaks and Lake Watch and get Lake Fronts and get their feedback on both. And then at the same time, I guess I can ask if there's if they can relax the fine until such time as we come to the conclusion, so. Yeah, because that code enforcement is in the development office.
And I have another wild idea, but sometimes wild ideas get people to thinking in other ways. So our biggest problem are the storage containers, because the office is at Ashley Park Pool for now, right? Right, that's doing fine. So we have 2 containers full of stuff. There's a whole bunch of farms up and down the street, land. Maybe someone will let us park it on their land. I know it wouldn't be convenient.
Well, our carts are in there.
Well, those we can put in my garage. But like the other
I
stuff
love
is too
her.
big. I mean, it would just be for a couple months while we get this all ironed out. It wouldn't be convenient for the guys, but I'll buy them pizza. And then we can do it right instead of trying to patch it together to avoid a fine.
Well, hopefully they'll be able, yes.
She made a valid point, instead of farms down the road, can we engage with the golf course to see if they have any room in their facility that we can store there temporarily?
I had approached them on that. But if you think you might be more persuasive, they indicated that they were full up and they use all the space. No, they don't.
Yeah, I mean, at the same time they're selling, I mean.
I think my question is not necessarily storing.
No, they're gonna build a new facility over.
Not necessarily storing the information, we move the roll-offs over there inside the gate.
Yeah, just for a short.
But they're not allowed it anywhere. The county would bust them.
Just temporarily.
I don't know. The county, the PD totally disapproves, and I spoke with Amy.
Templeton.
I mean, if
I'm sure Angel would have a problem.
But
But I was.
if you might be better because you're a golf course kind of guy. Why don't you contact the golf course manager and have him call his file? I'll even give you his boss's name and phone number. And Mike is the golf course manager, and after the meeting, I'll give you the owner's name and phone number. And you can speak with him. Last time I talked to him, it was about moving the staff trailer over there, which found out later the county wouldn't let us do. But he said he would only do that in exchange for forgiving all of the golf courses assessments. And I said, I'm sorry, but we can't do
You don't have the authority.
Yeah.
Well, we can't approach them and see if maybe we could store our equipment and carts. Maybe we could rent a little section. Just for the time being, it's gonna be at least a year before they construct something to move their
Right.
maintenance. And then be able to sell that property off. They're gonna build a separate restaurant clubhouse building with their maintenance underneath it over on the golf course land behind them. current clubhouse. Because they need to be away from the owner of the current. So that's what they are currently. But again, it's gonna be a year or so, so if they do have enough room that we could
Yeah,
rent it, that may be a great idea. I mean, it would be great to work out of there. Okay, so I'll give you all that. So we're going the 2-track,
Tree tracks only.
2 tracks. You're gonna do the 2 different things with the county. He's gonna contact all the golf course.
I've got that in my notes.
Okay.
Right, well,
Anything else we need to do on this?
Well,
issue?
to make sure we're leaving. Making sure we don't handicap ourselves, so. We're working on the assumption that taking action, showing good faith to the county. That we think we'll be able to stretch
Push
the
it the
process
next-
out long enough, so we don't have an immediate. Budget crunch where with this budget we just approved, that we would somehow. Dip into exhaust if every worst case scenario happened, our reserves going this route.
Yeah, again. If. You go to the big plan off 5 Oaks.
Right.
You are going to tonight have to, in fact, I would say, just because it's still in the mix, I would bump up that reserve, probably
That was my
double it. Because you've got enough projects coming at you to spend the $300,000 without this.
Well, how many of those projects are threatening us with $250 fines? If it's something that is in our reserve study, or, I mean, I've been after Billy's Trail since before I was elected. If we need to push that back in order of, in order to take care of the more urgent pressing need.
Well,
Let's not leave tonight and leave ourselves handicapped and forced into one of the 2 options we've said we want to be considering.
Well, you need to set your budget. You have to have money in there. You don't have it in reserves to do that project.
You don't have it this fiscal year.
Yeah.
you won't
And
have
you
it
won't
next
have the
year
next.
right,
year
unless we
if they
put it in
don't
that budget.
Put money in.
if we don't bump it up.
What you need to do is set your highest potential, what you could do tonight, and then between now and your final budget in July, when you have to adopt it. They
Well, by
may
then
have
we
a
might
little
know
more
something more. yeah.
concrete information, and you can cut some out of that budget.
So basically what we're saying is we're gonna have to bump the budget up fairly significantly. In an attempt to avoid using a lakefront parcel, and that should hopefully make it a little more palatable to the community.
Right, or at least leave the option open.
We get this, say we all approve on one of them, how long until they break ground and actually get this thing going, and when do we have to start forking over money to them? Like,
The building's a prefab, right, Brett?
You would have to start.
Right
this
front
fiscal
to this
year.
car.
And it would be
Yeah,
for the
but-
county for us to at least be able to tell them, we're moving forward with a plan.
right, but I'm saying is like, thinking budget wise, we kick them off with say half of the cost or whatever. By the time they're done, you're not gonna be done in this fiscal year, you're paying for the whole building and everything,
No,
right? So then we would pay.
No, we won't even have the money this fiscal,
Well,
not even half.
I understand.
Yes, we will. We will. I mean, if we're putting aside 350,000,
But that's
In
for
this-
2024.
But that's for 20, sorry.
right? We're putting aside that money for 2024. That's gonna take us through September of 2024. We're probably not gonna be done with that. Then we approve another $350,000 reserve next year, because we're gonna need it. And that should be sufficient to cover the expenses, even, I mean, we know we're going to, as David says, put the plan on a diet, so it's not gonna be $382,000 necessarily. I think we will have enough money if we have $350,000 in reserves for this coming fiscal year and 350 for the following fiscal year, plus what we have on hand already,
Our reserve study didn't anticipate this cost.
right?
The consequence of having this unavoidable building facility, we might need to push out some things that were in our reserve study that were on the docket for being done this year.
Yeah, and the fence isn't gonna be,
Right, and
anybody-
we defensive stages, we,
Yeah.
potentially have defrayed that cost by.
Yeah.
We'll
100
see,
plus
everyone might
thousand.
come with this.
Right, just, you have to remember though, that the minute the fiscal year turns over, you don't have that money. You have to wait.
Aggregated for every month.
Well, yeah, but you have to wait till the tax revenue or the assessment revenues come in, and that usually, we still haven't.
First week of
collected.
December, usually is when you get your first significant one.
Yeah.
Right. But we've got to be spending that on our actual annual budget, and right now, we still haven't collected all the money to come in. We're still waiting on what, 200,000?
Oh, yeah.
Are we, I mean, probably that's typical for how long it takes over the year to fully.
Right, and
collect
some
it,
of that's
right?
bond money, it's not just, it's not O and M.
No, that's just from the O and M.
Yeah. You're still down about $355,000
Perfect.
By the means, so.
in collection.
So basically, I want the reality. I don't want it to like funny, but I'm being real upfront and real with you. You do the big ticket cost item without adjusting this budget, and we're gonna be skating on the brink of this disaster. I just gotta let you know that.
And I'm not. We passed a ceiling tonight, so I'm not saying that maybe we don't need to, add some cushion to that. Again, just, I don't wanna leave here tonight and be stuck with only one of these two options we were saying. we want to
Right,
do for 60.
then I would recommend it,
You're
putting
gonna have to adjust.
at least another 100 or 150,000 onto your reserves for the next year's budget.
Knowing that's our ceiling and that we can claw back from that.
Mhm.
I think that's enough.
I'll do it. I'll move that
It's gonna be
we,
close, but yeah,
I will move that we amend the resolution passed tonight to contribute 450 to the reserves.
You
I
don't
can
have,
do that.
you don't have to amend the resolution. The resolution is just adopting the budget, but we do have to go in and change it. So there was some, if you want to change it, what?
well, we would have to vote as a board to change.
But and that,
It's not the resolution.
How much is 500,000, but that's that.
that
17.4%. Increase.
Alright, so we say, let's say the maintenance is 300,000, some ballpark out there, and then we got the fence, say, hopefully 100,000, that's 400,000 right there, right?
I would say that that fence has a big question mark on it, where the maintenance
Yeah.
ability,
But we,
whether it's 88 or 360 or somewhere in
has a
between.
big
most
question
likely,
mark on
Does
it.
not have a question.
Well, yeah, that's true.
The
But
question
that's-
mark is maybe.
But we
can
don't
spread that.
know yet if the county is gonna let us take down the fence. We're 90% sure they're going to, but that's kind of iffy too.
Yes.
But then,
But again, you do have other things. We didn't think we were going to have to spend this fiscal year. What is it? It's gonna be 30 some odd thousand on the splash pad. We have these emergency things that come up through the year that you don't want to get so low, and we're pretty low right now, that we can't deal with those.
I mean, just me looking at, and I think you start fixing all these things, it's fine, fad, full.
Yeah.
Getting the thing over the playground, right? I mean, obviously things pop up, right? But I mean, if this maintenance is probably the most important, probably also gotta tackle that, right?
Do we ever do a special assessment that doesn't go into the O and M taxing, or we just have a one-time fee for people? Are we able to do
You can
that?
do that, but it doesn't really make financial sense to do that. There's a cost, and usually when you start collecting that directly, you're gonna get people who don't understand it, they don't
Okay,
pay it, and
okay.
then your remedy is
Ugly.
foreclosure. So,
Well, because my thought was
That's
maybe
really
people wouldn't get so excited or upset if they thought they were just gonna pay $100 and be done,
well,
you
but
know?
I think you can make an explanation to them that, a big chunk of this is for the building.
Mhm.
However, if you're deferring other things, you don't wanna say this is a one-time thing, because
Right.
you essentially just deferred other stuff to the next year.
Right.
You're not gonna see
You're gonna
a
need
big
that.
drop in their assessments. next year,
Right.
because you're doing the stuff you defer.
Right, it's more pay now and that can drop back off, or keep it more steady. And yes, we kicking the can down the road, but that, you know, is less pain right now.
Yeah.
And the trade-off being, yeah, that.
Because we have more alleyways coming up and not.
Well, just a frame of reference, every $100,000 that we do is $50 per house.
A year, every year, and that's on average.
Right.
And
Right.
I don't like projecting.
Well, the other question I had though is, say,
But I meant for the building.
Same stuff.
Yeah,
when do we
I don't like
pay for the
percentages, they're not.
maintenance facility to kick off, and when do we? I mean, are we gonna pay the whole $300,000 next year if that's what it costs, or would?
No, it'll be done in increments, the same as most of your other projects. I'm sure, once we have the plan and it's firm and this is what the board wants to do, there'll probably be an initial deposit. But there's gonna be different stages. There's gotta be site work, and then you got the building, and then you've got this.
But-
Probably.
Yeah, so, but it will be, I presume it will be done within the next, by the end of the next fiscal year.
Oh,
Definitely.
So I just have a question.
Possibly.
For sure.
Early.
I'm looking at the balance sheet and our general fund reserves are at 798. So say we take out the 647, right? So that leaves us, about $158,000,
Correct.
$50,000. But we still have $467,000 in operating reserves, which we're hopefully not going to touch, but we still have $839,000 in unassigned fund balance in our general fund.
That's,
Is that what
I would-
floats us through?
I
what,
would,
2
no,
year?
yeah,
Yeah.
that's the money to run the budget.
First 3 months of your operating expenses.
That's what operating reserve.
Well, that's what that is.
So, and
I would,
I don't think that's on the table.
I did a deep dive with Sally, not Sally, Samantha.
Samantha.
Sorry, too many S's. And we finally came up with the fact, because that's what I wanted to know what our numbers are. I don't want to over budget. I don't want to be the one sitting there as Harmony CDD goes into bankruptcy.
Right.
So
The government does it.
that.
We don't have.
You are the government, you are there. That's not, that number is not there. It's. Yes, the operating reserves, but we have to keep rolling that. We always have to keep that, or we go into this.
I'm not suggesting we do anything with
Right.
that.
But the 800, that is not, the majority of that is to run the rest of our year's budget, because we don't collect another penny
Oh,
until.
I see. Yeah, we use that to get.
December, you'll start getting.
Okay.
Right.
And
It's not all at once, but it's.
right, so we've got 6 or 8 months that we have to get through with that money. Out of that money, I think she said there was 180,000. That's how close we are. And so,
So Angel, 450 would be what, 15%? Ish.
450 would be 15.2%.
I think between that being our ceiling that we can claw back from the hopefully, likelihood that we do not need to fully fund a new fence right now. That we potentially have another 100 that we've set aside in our budget for invasives that we have a chance of staying ahead of on our own. And spreading it, showing good faith with the county and spreading out the cost of building this. Thinned down version of a, again, potential 5 Oaks location, just leaving that on the table. From everything I've seen tonight, I think 450 would do that. And only in the rainiest of rainy days, if everything else against stuff's.
Yeah, that was just my chair.
then we adjust. So do I hear a motion to change our reserve in the 2024 budget?
Can I'm not sure I understand this. You already put in a $300,000 reserve. Or 350, but that didn't include the building.
That's correct.
So now
We're saying
we're only gonna increase by 100,000 and think that's
Set
gonna cover our-
450 to leave that option on the table. with all these caveats that there are, ways that we can stretch it out, get in. And yes, if we have to defer things that we had wanted, I'll put Billy's Trail up first. It doesn't compare, it doesn't fully offset, but. This is
But
what
if
we have
we
to take care
say
of. at
four
night.
fifty tonight,
That's
but we-
50%.
but
So
we
that's
still have,
probably-
a couple months, we could reduce it still.
Yes. So I move that we amend the resolution.
Well, the budget.
The budget, sorry, I move that we amend the budget,
Your proposed budget to.
reserve contribution to be 450 from 350.
You got 2 months to make the final.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye.
Okay.
All opposed? Hearing no opposition, motion passes. That was pure passion. Yes.
No, I wanted 500,000. I'm not gonna start over 50.
All right.
Well, since Dan volunteered as a sacrificial lamb, Billy's Trail, I'm not gonna bring it up for tonight then, so,
Table that one.
yeah, if you.
Thank you.
Mhm. Sorry, Mike.
Oh, no, you're good.
It's Brett's fault.
All right.
You guys off to drive home yet tonight? in this
Yeah.
Weather.
We are now on district councils.
So I've got a few things that are included in the agenda and a couple ones that aren't, because they've kind of come out recently. First of all, is I've talked to you before about the ethics bill that's been rolling around. That did pass. The governor has signed it. So there will be 4 hours of ethics training that all board members are required to attend starting January 1, 2024. And so starting on that date, within that next 12-month period, you'll have to undergo that 4 hours. We're currently checking into whether or not the existing training that's currently there for county commissioners and city council people will qualify for district board supervisors, or whether or not there has to be different information included in your training session. So I would say in the fall, we will present you with all the different options you have and how to get that training. We're looking at whether or not it's something that we can do. But I know from talking to some city council people, it's been relatively painless for them to do it. Usually it's an online class or something like that. So we'll keep you posted on that. The sovereign,
Attorneys get out of it?
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Attorneys get exempted from a lot of this.
Yeah, we only have 20 to 30 hours of ethics I've got to do for 2 states each time. But second issue is the sovereign immunity bill did not pass. So that was good because it didn't affect your liability insurance rates, although we're hearing property insurance rates are going up significantly at this point in time. So other districts have been told up to 50% for property insurance increases. Kate John is a colleague of mine from my office. She has a significantly lower billing rate than myself or Wes. She's on the line. I've asked her to attend the meeting. You won't be charged for her time. But she's been doing some of the back office stuff for you all, and I intend for her to keep doing that. And I think that's one of the things that I think I suggested to the board might be a way to help reduce the fees if she's involved. Wes is still available. If for some reason I can't be here and there's somewhat of a complex issue. But we would anticipate Kate doing more of the work and Wes doing less. And I think that will work out for you all. The straight line fence contract, Teresa mentioned this earlier. I did look at that contract. There's some language in Exhibit A that makes the contract, and because you all are my clients here, I would say ambiguous at best. And I think that, Brett's done a good job of working with the contractor. It sounds like to try to get a credit in that $4,000 to $5,000 mark would be a good credit just based on my review of the contract. And that would be, again, a reason why we don't accept proposals with the language that's in there, because otherwise we might have had a more clear-cut case to be able to get the 8,800 back. So that's the straight line fence contracts. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay. 2 other issues that I was working on is I discovered that there was a deed that was from the Enclave HOA to the Harmony CDD that was recorded in February or March of this year. For the ponds that are over there, which is tract K 900. That is not consistent with the agreement that went with the plat. It's not consistent with the plat language. The district was never supposed to own that land. I've reached out to the attorney who prepared that deed. He acknowledged that it was probably a mistake. He was just doing something his client told him to do. And so he said that he's going to commit to work with us to undo that. But unfortunately, it's not going to be a simple undoing, because two things. One is there was a deed. I would argue that it was never delivered to us because I've never seen it before, and I don't think anybody else has.
Somebody signed it from the CDD?
Nope, you don't have to sign a deed. Yeah, and we've not received it, so it wasn't delivered, which is a requirement of law, and it wasn't accepted by the CDD. However, it came across to the CDD in the property records, and his first solution was, well, we can just quit claim it back from the CDD to the HOA. However, there's two issues that I've got to look at and make sure he covers. One is anytime that you are conveyed property that merges all your easement rights that you had in that property. So I have to make sure that we don't accidentally lose our easement rights, and I don't want to quit claim back to them without a reservation of those easement rights, because
Can't we just void it since it was never delivered?
yeah, that's where I think the direction will head, but I'm letting him do the work and then come up and he can explain how it's going to happen, but he just needs to make sure that we are not in a worse position than we were before they made this error. And I think that they've so far acknowledged it's an error. They're not trying to, stuff something down our throats or anything like that. So we'll keep working with him on that. Exactly. And then the other issue that I did look at was there was a question on tracks K400 and K600, which are tracks that are anticipated under the plat to go to the CDD. However, your agreement says they only go to the CDD after they've been inspected by the engineer, the district engineer, and the district engineer does the certification. None of that has occurred. And this came up because those tracks are listed on the property appraiser website as already owned by the CDD. However, I could not find a deed for those. And I haven't done a title search, which is what I would have to do to give a definitive opinion. But my guess is what's going on is somebody at the property appraiser's office looked at the plat. And it says, the plat says these will be owned by the CDD, looked at it and then just punched it into their record. So we'll see if there's any more cleanup there, but I just want to let you know that was the other issue that we worked on. So happy to answer any questions that anybody has. And I'll ask Kate to email you all her contact information. So if you can't get a hold of me, you can get a hold of her. And I'll have her down to a meeting at some point when it makes sense. Maybe your budget meeting would be the next time I would anticipate coming down here.
Okay. Any further questions? Mike?
Great.
Thank you so much for all that information.
No problem.
Go ahead. All right, next item on the agenda, our district manager.
I know, it's so hard.
So I know on past time, we already went over the code enforcement. I went over that earlier. Your campus suite proposals in there. Again, you wanted to leave it in there. If the board wants to move forward with it, great. If you don't, fine too. Number of registered voters as of April, 2,366. And then there also is the proposal to update your reserve study. As was discussed when they initially proposed, that if you wanted to update it with any additional assets or anything like that, numbers or anything we come across, you can do it. That's the proposal to do it. So that's essentially it.
Yeah, and that's that number I noticed is reasonably, significantly cheaper, about half of what actually doing that guaranteed update would cost us. So it would definitely be a better deal than waiting another 6 months to a year and having the contractually guaranteed update done.
What were you talking about?
The reserve study.
Oh, okay.
Remember I don't know if you, but the reserve study for everybody, and I think you got the copy. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it, but they did it right at the cusp when the inflation hit so hard and everything was skyrocketing. So the numbers that came out in that study are really skewed low. which gives us then a low amount to put into our reserves each year, which was $300,000. So what we need to do is have them come back and update it with the numbers that are today's numbers and going forward. So I would recommend that we go forward with that. What is that? 20, you have that number? $2,400.
I so moved.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call a question. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Hearing no opposition, motion passes unanimously.
I would also like to make a motion that we do the campus suite. However, I have to say that. We're never gonna have time to talk about it, and I think it's a real benefit. And if we do it for 1 year and we don't like it, we're not talking big bucks here. And I think it's gonna be a great way for our community to give more information to our residents.
Dan, can we store our existing site if in a year?
Oh, sure.
Okay, so
And I promise you, a former supervisor has a copy of it ready to go as well.
And so there was one question I know Teresa had about this was, in there it says they allow 48 hours. That's not to post. So they post immediately when we send it to them, but they have 48 hours to make it ADA compliant.
Okay.
The actual document, so that's where the 48 hours.
And I do have one little question, but it doesn't affect my proposal or my motion, I should say.
oh, wait, do we have a second?
Oh,
I'll second.
Okay, motion second. Go ahead. Discussion.
so if one of us wanted to put a blurb on there, like food truck is coming Friday night for Rufus's, we send it to you first?
That's right. And then I send it over and they get it posted.
Okay,
And there's been a page like that, but it takes, an annual, it's
Right.
being updated even more, so.
right, so the changes will, things will be announced quickly, and I think it'll be really nice, so.
Okay,
Right.
I have a motion and a second to approve the campus suite proposal for the website. All in favor? All opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. The last thing, we've got a consideration of donation of land. Carol, did you have anything more on that?
I reached out to the South Florida Water Management District, woman named Ms. Prather, and she informed me that, as did the CBD, that those parcels are conservation tracts and would be subject to the same monitoring and management requirements for invasives. So I reached out to the owner of the properties that were being offered and said this, and he said he was going to look into it himself. Apparently, as an owner, he is also obligated. It's according to Ms. Prather. It's just that they have tens of thousands of these kinds of parcels, and so they are not on top of every single one. So at this point, it's at a standstill. I think, what she said to me was, if you can have the current owner mitigate on the properties and give them to you in good shape, and then provide money for monitoring and maintenance ongoing, then she said, that would be a reasonable way to accept the property. I do not believe the developer has anything like that in mind.
So currently, I'm gonna leave it as in progress.
Yes.
So I get it.
Yeah.
All
I
right,
just wanna make sure I get it right on the evening.
thank you so much for that. Okay. Supervisor's requests.
Well, I just also wanted to, one request I had made at the, I think, meeting before last was that we get something on our website, maybe on the new Campus Suite website, Campus Suite hosted website, that shows how we are obligated to monitor and manage invasives on conservation lands that we own. So I want to propose that that's part of what Campus Suite gets, so that there is some kind of documentation that shows residents, because we've had lots of residents say, not lots, but we've had a vocal few say, don't do it, just don't bother with it. But I would like there to be something that residents can see that we have a legal obligation. We are required legally to monitor and manage that property.
Yeah, there's already informational stuff on the CDD and structure and board members and everything, so there's definitely a good place for that.
So that's my supervisor's request.
And then my supervisor request, I mean, far be it for me to suggest we need to be spending any more money, but it is something what we were looking at and fell off. The signs, the informational signs, I know they're not something super expensive, but it kind of dropped off our radar and just like.
I thought we ordered them and I was thinking about them today. Where are they?
Oh, yes.
We did. We never, I mean, there's a sign, do we need as many as there are?
What do you want on
I hate
them?
to say it.
4 agendas and
and we
Well,
tabled
now
it,
that's
like,
gonna
six
tear
times
the
of
fence
these.
down and make the entry. We might have
That's my
some.
next
Now's the
point, though.
perfect timing, yeah.
We own that tower. And
Well,
the
we could-
friendly signs that are on top of that too.
Oh, you could put a big monitor up there and do it from your living room, flashing messages.
Okay,
But,
so
wait,
that's a request for next meeting.
and I did inquire of the Permanent Nature and Animal Committee what we wanted on the signs at the trailheads on CBD property. And so I think that's in progress, and please put it on the agenda as old business for me to bring verbiage for that, for those signs. They probably won't be.
for the trailhead signs.
Yeah, so there's gonna be one for Billy's Trail and there'll be one for Butterfly Trail.
Somebody had mentioned, the supervisor's pay and the question of it being available for in-person attendance versus Zoom. You want that on
Oh,
next?
right, sure,
Okay,
yeah.
Okay,
yeah, that'd be new business.
you wanna know what the legal answer to that is, or what your policy is?
A legal answer.
The legal answer is if you attend by phone, at least under the rules that we've always drafted, which I don't know if you've adopted, well, you haven't adopted this. But our legal opinion is if you participate by Zoom, by phone, or in person, you're entitled to be paid.
That's currently how they operate.
Okay, so if that's the legal.
That's the legal answer. Now, you all can talk if you wanna change that, but. that's
What
the
they
legal
talked about before, just to give you a little history, there was a prior board where, everyone would come, but one supervisor, whether they had jobs, I'm not sure the history, but he just was never here. And, but he would
Well-
attend on the phone for 5 or 10 minutes, and then he, would have to drop off or something like that, and he was still getting compensation. So
Yeah.
that's where it initiated.
And again, I mean, the right to compensation is an individual right under Florida statute. It's
Okay.
not something that you could have a policy.
I would,
for,
I would suggest
But
we
it's not
don't mess
enforceable.
with it. I would suggest we don't mess with it then.
I think I'm gonna start.
I
paying
use mine to
attention to
rescue feral cats, so.
I can go take a walk and be on the meeting on Zoom.
Yeah.
Um,
yeah.
You here.
You gotta have.
Okay, the next thing I want to do really quick, which I'd like to institute as a new thing, is just do a quick recap at the end of the meeting, so everybody knows who's doing what. So we have, David is going to go ahead and schedule a meeting and meet with the county on the 2 different proposals and get their feedback on those. We have the master contract. We're gonna do work authorizations with the splash pad on them.
Those will be prepared by staff.
Right,
And looked at by me if they send them.
exactly.
Or by
What
Kate,
else? Pardon?
or by Kate.
Yeah, that's fine, but I think we set it up so that they could actually fill them out and then
Yeah.
she could look at it real quick.
We got the paper company to fix the punch hole list.
Yes, David's gonna work with them to get all the punch lists fixed.
Got benchmark, we gave them 20K. We're gonna figure out where they're at and where they're.
Yes, but we need to do staff will do a work authorization for that also, right?
And Benchmark is supposed to get with me about where to
Okay.
plant those donated.
Right. And
bulbs.
then we're gonna get some near verbatim minutes for both this meeting and the April 27th, and you're gonna try the different.
Yeah,
Options.
we're gonna find you a third party to be able to do your minutes.
Hopefully.
Or the
Possibly
teams.
built into Zoom or
Yep, you can try those options too. Never done it, but I'm gonna try it.
Okay. And what else did we have? You're doing great.
We talked about the fence.
Yeah, so, okay, so you're going to,
Check with the county.
right, we're going to,
9:25.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
we're going to verify, Angel is going to verify, Angel and David will bring it up in his meeting, so between the two, we'll verify. Hopefully have in writing that we are permitted to take down the fence.
Yeah, that should be
Okay.
better looking, yeah.
Right, but I just want to make sure everybody's got it on their list. And. And she's going to move forward to make sure that our public hearing is advertised and the proper documents get to the county.
Yeah.
Is that anything
And we're
else?
gonna do everything by numbers, not by percentages.
All righty. I think we're.
Real fast, I
Yeah.
got an email from Joe in Straight Line, $3.50 a linear foot to remove and dispose.
Oh, and dispose, well.
Figured I would share.
Thank you. Keep that in your back. All right, anybody have anything else before we,
And we'll move to adjourn.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Hi.
Okay.
All opposed, hearing none. Motion passes.
9:27.
With the making West Coast, so.
Oh, dear.
Thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Well, these-
Great.